You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up the better. Put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 6th part of What If Naruto Enters Undertale? Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Hussbek on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Suddenly, everything around him froze in time. Then there was a bright flash of light which forced him to close his eyes. He cautiously opens his eyes to see nothing but an endless white void and was about to wonder if he's dead when a familiar voice behind him. Come on son, are you just going to let it end and go out like this? Naruto's head snapped up sharply with eyes wide open and mouth agape. That voice, it can't be. One part was in disbelief but the other was clinging to desperate hope for the owner of the voice who continued to speak. So what if it looks hopeless? If it were me, I still wouldn't give up. There was no doubt about it, it truly is him. Embrace your hopes and dreams and whatever happens, protect your honor as a soldier. Well okay, you're not exactly a soldier, but it's what's inside that counts. Naruto opened his mouth to whisper out a word he thought he would never say again, Dad, shedding a tear in hearing his voice. Well? Do you need a hand with her? And no, Naruto struggled once more to at least rise to his knees with his chipped bakken as support. You've been through worse, haven't you, son? If you managed to face various monsters whom you befriended, survived against a giant oversized killer weed and even stopped a boss monster kid who essentially became a god, then beating her should be a cinch, right? Yeah, Naruto replied, albeit was still uncertain given how the situation was looking for him. Minato glanced, looked over his shoulder at Naruto, then turned back. Naruto, I know you're still grieving over my death, but you have to come to terms with it. I know it's hard for both you and your mother, but you can't let that continue to hold you back like how you're doing right now from fighting. Sometimes you have to take the initiative, as defending is not going to be your only solution in battles, unfortunately. If words and mercy doesn't solve the issue, then the only way to win is to fight. Exclamation point. Naruto's eyes widened but didn't say anything, prompting Minato to continue talking. And another thing that's also holding you back is your phobia of BLD. You can't let your fears take over you, as you'll never move forward if you continue to freeze upon seeing BLD. Fear can be your greatest enemy and you must conquer the fear that lives in your heart. Conquer my fear? Yes, you must overcome it if you wish to be unbound by your limitations, the very chains you had let your fears bind you with. Once your fear is gone, you are truly free. Naruto understood what his father was talking about and yet was hesitant. Even though he wanted to, it was hard for him to overcome his fear due to that incident. Minato looked at Naruto and got a clear idea of what's really bothering his son just by his expression and let out a sigh. Son, I know what you're thinking, and if you're assuming that I'm upset with you, I'm not. That caught Naruto's attention as he listened. Naruto, I've been watching over you long enough to know you only did what you thought was right. That incident where you saved a woman from a thief who was planning on mugging her, you did the right thing in stopping him. Naruto shook his head in protest. But, I almost killed the guy. I didn't mean to go that far. You trained me to protect, but I almost did the opposite of that. But you didn't. Son, you have to look at the bigger picture here. He was carrying a switchblade to mug that woman. A live weapon. Had he been carrying a gun, I wouldn't even imagine what he could have done other than just robbing her. You were just defending her while stopping that thief. Had you just stood by and let this happen, then I would have been disappointed in you. Even so, I lost control of my rage and let myself do something I normally would have never done. I could have taken a life from a human being. I wouldn't be no different than a murderer. Hearing his son's self-loathing, Minato spoke sternly. Son, stop thinking about that. You were just aiming to cripple him, not kill him. That thief on the other hand could have done a lot worse if he was given the opportunity, so it's fine. I just told you that I'm not upset. If anything, I'm proud of you for standing up to him and save that woman from being robbed. Naruto mumbled lowly, didn't look that way when that woman screamed at what I did to that thief. Minato rubbed the back of his head sheepishly, well, I'll admit you were going a little overboard to the point he was barely breathing from his injuries. Guess you did inherit Kushina's temper after all. She used to be that way when she was younger, then it toned down a lot when we got together and later had you. He laughed a bit, which Naruto looked away at this, but that's besides the point is that I'm proud of you and there is no need for you to hold yourself back. It's time for you to move on and face your fear. Remember son, the strongest defense is at times a swift and decisive offense, and now is that time. Taking in his words, Naruto felt that coldness which had been plaguing him ever since that day melt away and something else took its place, a tiny flame that was gradually increasing in intensity. He felt his bodily pains disappear and fully rose to his feet. Okay Dad, I'll do my best. Naruto turned around to face his father and saw that he looked just like he was on that last day, wearing the military uniform with a katana strapped to his waist. Minato looked down at him with a loving smile. I know you will son. Nothing like this could ever bring you down as your will of fire continues to burn brighter for every obstacle you face, and you'll prevail. Show Chara the true meaning of power as your determination is stronger than hers. Naruto nodded with a foxy grin. I will. Also I'm happy that I'm able to hear and see you again, at least one last time. Same here, son, but I won't be completely gone. I'll always be with you and your mother in your hearts. Minato then realized that he was beginning to fade away and uttered his last words before he disappears. Before I go, do you remember what I told you? Naruto nodded in affirmation. Yeah, I am your living legacy. Hearing that brought a smile to Minato as he fades away in sparkles of light. Naruto's soul began to shine as the sound of chains are broken from acceptance, and having overcome his fear echoed throughout the void. With a hand on his wound in a futile attempt to stop the bleeding, Sans could only sit and watch Chara approach him with a deranged smile and a knife glinting from the light before bowing his head in resignation of his defeat. His brother is dead, more than half of the monsters in the underground were killed with the king soon to join, and he couldn't even protect the human who was his ally in all this. Looks like I'll be seeing you soon bro, Sans chuckled sadly. Chara smirked, good to know that you've had your last laugh, see ya later bonehead. She raised the knife above her head. Sans closed his head and waited as he heard a whoosh through the air for the knife to land the killing blow. But nothing happened. What the you? Sans looked up and was shocked by what he was seeing right now. The knife was practically inches away from his head, with the only stopping it being a hand clamped around Chara's wrist, which belonged to someone who was supposed to be down for the count. Kid. Naruto gripped Chara's tightly before spinning her around and throwing away from him and Sans before turning to face the latter with an open palm pointed at him. Refectio, a glyph appeared Sans and proceeded to help him recover from his wound. Alright Chara, I've made up my mind. Since you've given me no other options, I'll give you exactly what you wanted. I'll fight you. Considering you've committed so many acts of violence, murder and genocide, I guess it's only fair I too use violence. You need to see that your actions have consequences, and I'll be the one to make you pay for them. Suddenly, Naruto began to glow brightly within the hall, which blinded both Chara and the recovered Sans. When the light died down, Chara and Sans became wide-eyed at what they're looking at. Naruto is shown that his injuries he received from Chara are completely gone, fully healed, but that's not what's making them shocked about. Both of Naruto's eyes now radiate with white aura, with his spiky blonde hair turning white as well, and white tribal markings appearing on his body whilst glowing through his bloodied clothes. What is this? What kind of power is this? Chara was in disbelief and can't seem to have an idea of what's happening. Even Sans was amazed at what he's seeing as he's watched from his spot at the glass window. Whoa kid. Naruto looked down at his hands, clenching and opening them repeatedly. This power, this overflowing power that's coursing through him as his magical aura is radiating off of him, this felt good, no amazing. It's like all of his fear, hesitation and self-doubt has been washed away. He's finally free of the chains which were binding him due to his limitations holding him back. Now he feels like he can do anything. And the only thing that's in thought right now is making Chara pay. The aforementioned person spoke up with a look of contemplation. This is interesting, I never knew you have this kind of power, big whoop. So you got yourself a little boost in power, TSK. So what? Your newfound powers aren't going to make any difference. Your efforts will just fall back to zero as I'm too determined. You'll still be an idiot coward who'll die as one. Naruto retorted with a neutral expression, you sure can talk a big game, can't you? I suppose you don't know your mouth could get you a whole lot of trouble. Then again, your actions of committing genocide doesn't even begin to describe the kinds of trouble you're in right now. Oh, I'm in trouble. Please, what are you gonna do? I chopped up that stick in your hands into toothpicks. Just because you've achieved some new power doesn't mean it's going to help you. I bet all you'll do is just form a shield to curl yourself in, or perhaps you'll just defend like you always do. You really don't understand the situation here, do you? Perhaps a demonstration is in order to get through to you. Chara laughed in amusement. You know what? Sure, go right ahead and show me. I am curious to see the new power you acquired, though I'm not gonna be impressed nor see how your soon-to-be death makes a difference, but do try. Naruto held out his chipped Bakken and channeled his determination through it, wreathing the blade in white flames. Then he swiped to the side and revealing to have been completely restored, except there are glyphic symbols all over it and glowing intensely. Is that it? Was fixing your stick supposed to impress me? Because sadly for you, I'm not even at least bit imper dash. Before she could finish her sentence, Chara was forced to dodge to the side to avoid getting hit. A crescent wave of white energy from Naruto's casual swing of his Bakken, and the next thing she knew was that he was right in front of her while in the middle of a swing, much to her shock as she didn't see him move this fast. Unable to defend herself, Chara was forced to take the hit, but as she did, she felt her HP take a serious hit and was shocked to discover that she practically lost half of her health. She was surprised by how that one single attack took that much damage from someone whose LV is 1. Naruto spoke sternly with the white aura radiating from his body. Are you impressed now? Because I'm not here to entertain you, I'm here to make you understand that you have no idea what kind of trouble you are in right now. How the heck did I lose half of my HP? Something different with him now, though Chara in confusion, so she decided to use check on Naruto to see any changes in his status and couldn't believe what she's seeing. Naruto. LV1. ATK 80 Def 60. Determined form. LV1. ATK 105 Def 96. You feel like you've made a grave mistake. Chara couldn't believe his stats are higher, especially his ATK. Back then it was just question marks, which left her confused on his ATK stat before learning he refused to fight. But now he doesn't have a problem with fighting anymore. His ATK are revealed to be very high, even his def has increased from this power he achieved. Naruto seemed to know what Chara is doing, as he can guess she's using check to look at his current stats, and judging from her expression, they must be high due to this new power he has achieved. I take it you're surprised? Well, you should be. This is what you wanted, right? You wanted to see me fight you that bad. You'll get your wish. I'm done holding back anymore, and this time you'll suffer the consequences. Trying to retain a sense of confidence, Chara retorted, the game is not as fun if you're already finished. Naruto then spoke in an angry tone, a game. You think all of this is some game to you? Well, let me tell you this, Chara, I haven't even begun to play. Chara blurred forward and swiped at Naruto with her knife in an attempt to catch him off guard with her speed, confident that she'll land a hit on him. However, Naruto saw through her strategy and blocked the attack one-handedly with his Bakken. Naruto took a swift step forward to slam a powerful palm move into Chara's stomach, making her stumble backwards in pain. Lapiste. He thrusts a fist forward to conjure a glyph that summoned a large stone fist, which punched forward in front of him and slammed into Chara and sending flying before crashing into a pillar. Lucky hit. Chara rose to her feet and glared at Naruto. Let's see you handle this. She swung her knife several times to launch crescent waves of red energy in Naruto's direction. Naruto frowned in response, as I am right now, that won't work the second time. He lunged at the incoming projectiles whilst utilizing the storm form to evade and deflect the incoming projectiles to clear out a straight path. Rapidus Fio, a large glyph appeared for him to leap through, which created a green mystical shockwave around him, allowing Naruto to move rapidly and reach Chara in literal seconds. Grando. He conjured a dagger of ice to attack. Chara blocked it with her knife but noticed that the ice was crawling along the knife and now onto her hand, forcing her to back away whilst cradling her frozen hand. Feeling cold? Here, let me warm you up. Ignis. Naruto reared a fist back before thrusting forward to launch a trio of fireballs in a spread shot. Chara barely leapt out of the out with the intense heat radiating from the fireballs melting the ice from her hand. Chara glared at Naruto, who stared back with clear focus. Nary a trace of self-doubt could be found in him. Just where did he get this second wind of his? There's no way I'm going to lose to a sniveling coward like him. She lunged at him and assaulted him with a flurry of slashes whilst enhancing her knife with the power of determination. Naruto wasn't being idle either, repeatedly responding with a barrage of strikes to counter hers. The level of combat skill between the two is quite noticeable. Chara gained hers from fighting strong monsters like Sans and Undyne, and Naruto was trained from a younger age by his father, who was a high-ranked militant. The duo clashed strongly, struggling for dems, which ended in a draw, and they broke away from each other. "Whoa, he's really tearing into her right now," said Sans in awe, seeing Naruto's current skill set being a far cry higher compared to the previous fights. He may not know why the human child held himself back, but was glad to see that it was no longer the case. He won't kill her, which leaves the question as to how we can take her down for good. Chara brought out her gun and began firing energy bullets. Naruto quickly formed the shield of determination in the form of a ballistic shield. The blonde reared a hand back and flung his Bakken at Chara, who darted out of the way and prepared to shoot once more, but Naruto was already charging in. She swiped at him, but he slid under the attack before countering with a low sweep kick to knock her off balance. Naruto quickly lashed out with a punch at Chara's hand to make her drop the gun and kicked it away from her, but had to jump away when she tried to stab him. Naruto took note of how Chara was glaring at him and quirked an eyebrow. "What, you were expecting this to be a one-sided fight in your favor? It may have been easy taking on a kid who's afraid to fight back, but now you're facing a kid who's not afraid to hit back and make sure it hurts. Better brace yourself, Chara, 'cause this is really gonna hurt." Chara clenched her knife tightly in rage, talking like you've won this fight. "I'm going to enjoy carving that stupid tongue out of that dirty mouth by the time I'm through with you." Naruto took a combative stance in spite of lacking a weapon. "Then you're gonna have to work for it." With a roar of anger, Chara attacked Naruto relentlessly, with the latter ducking and weaving out of range of her attacks while at times deflecting some with open palms before countering with swift jabs of his own, much to her aggravation. "I've had it. I'm killing you now." She began charging a lot of energy into the knife and prepared to attack. Naruto's grimoire suddenly floated before him to open up and flip through the pages before stopping at a page for him to see. "Alright then. First time using this spell, but this is a double or nothing kind of situation." Naruto spread his arms apart as a glyph appeared at the palm of each, then he brought them in front of him, fusing into one and pulsing strongly. "This is the end, now die." Chara swung her knife, launching a giant crescent wave of energy. "Kid, get out of there." Sans called out in worry, seeing that Chara really means business this time and isn't holding back at all with the clear intent to kill. "Don't worry, Sans, I got this." At his words, the glyph shone brightly. "Here we go, Union Netesco." The glyph fired a large powerful purple beam of energy which collided with Chara's attacks. The shockwave from the two struggling techniques can be felt all over the underground. The struggle grew intense before eventually ending in an explosive draw. Naruto coughed whilst trying to see through the smoke when something shot out and there was the sound of something piercing through flesh. The smoke dissipated to reveal Chara having run her knife through Naruto. "Kid!" Sans called out in horror. "I finally got you," said Chara gleefully, "now to make good on my promise." Naruto's head, which was lowered, slowly rose to face Chara and smile painfully. "Hey, I think you need to work on your aim more." The blonde gestured for Chara to look down, which she did to see that he had caught the blade with his bare hand, but he didn't emerge unscathed as droplets of blood dripped from his hand to the floor. Chara's eyes widened in shock. Impossible. Pain is a cheap price to pay when one fights to protect their loved ones. Naruto gripped her hand tightly and reared a fist back which began radiating an intense white fiery aura. Feel my determination. Wham! A punch so powerful that it can't be described sent Chara flying away from Naruto in a spiral, tumbling along the ground like a thrown stone skipping across a pond before smashing into the wall at the end of the Hall of Judgment with debris falling on top of her before everything was silent. Letting out a deep breath with the tribal markings disappearing, Naruto was about to toward Sans when something appeared. It was a black window bearing the buttons load and save. At first, he was confused since he never came across a save point ever since he found himself in this dimension before recalling something Asriel told him when he was Flowy. The power to reshape the world purely by your own determination. The ability to play God. The ability to save. I thought I was the only with that power, but apparently your desires override mine. Well, enjoy that power while you can, 'cause I'll be watching. That's right, only one with the highest determination can use the power of save. Chara and Frisk were the ones at first until I overcame my fears. This way, Chara won't be able to load since my determination is greater than hers now, thought Naruto. Sans was in utter shock at seeing Naruto having defeated Chara. He was soon overcome with happiness and relief that this nightmare of this never-ending torment is finally over. Kid, I don't believe it. You did it, you actually did it. Yeah, I did. I don't think she'll get up from all that. I hope she stays down. Naruto rushed over to check on Sans, noticing that the skeleton wasn't recovering fully for some reason in spite of having cast the regeneration spell on him. Anyways, I need to heal you. Sans shook his head, said, No can do, kid, I'm at my limit here. I won't be able to persist long enough to sustain my body. It won't be long before I turn to dust. Sans, don't say that. I can still save you. Perhaps I'll dash. No kid, it's too late for me. With that maniac unconscious and you taking away her ability to reset, I can at least die with a clear conscience. Besides, you're more determined than she is now. You can reset this timeline without her interference. Naruto felt unsure by his words. He never reset before back in his dimension, but if it means going back to the beginning without Chara's interference, then so be it. Perhaps it's the only way to set things right. Naruto summoned the button of reset before him while Sans watched him about to press the button, but before he did, he saw something rushing at Naruto from behind which made his eyes widen at who it is that's attempting to stop Naruto. Kid! Behind you! Sans yelled in distress. Naruto was alerted and looked behind him only to be surprised at seeing Chara conscious and running towards Naruto to kill him with a knife that is made out of her determination. He got tackled to the ground and reached to grab Chara's arms, struggling to stop her from driving the knife into his heart. Ha 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 ha. Oh Naruto, you really are something special. I never thought a human like you would possess such an amazing power as well as overpowering my determination with yours. You're so much fun. Much more fun than that boring comedian. However, I can't allow you to reset, not when things are getting so interesting. Chara smiled at Naruto demonically, which didn't help as half of her face is being covered by that black substance while her eyes are crimson red. Naruto continued to struggle against her. Get off me, you maniac. Chara started laughing, her voice distorting to sound just as demonic as her smile. He finally managed to push her off and quick kicked up to his feet. Chara attempted to tackle him once more, but the blonde was ready for her this time. He waited for her to get closer before darting to the side at the last second to get behind and restrain her in a full Nelson while keeping her knife away from him. Sans. I can't hold her back for long, you have to end this. Kill her while I hold her down. Naruto called out in urgency. Sans was shocked to hear that, but I can't kill you with her, there has to be dash. Sans. It's fine. I have a plan for this which it requires of you killing me along with her. I need you to trust me on this. Naruto suddenly cried out in pain. Chara managed to stab his side with her knife. If you want to die that badly, I'll gladly do that for you. I'm not gonna die here. Chara cried out madly, trying to stab him again and his HP dropping every time she manages to hit him, his hold on her gradually weakening. Sans. Hurry up. Do it, shouted Naruto, coughing up blood while Chara was laughing like a maniac as she continues to stab him. Sans was conflicted but seeing Naruto was losing his grip while getting stabbed to death by Chara, Sans had no other choice but to kill both Naruto and Chara. With little strength of magic Sans had left of him, he managed to conjure a bone and launched it like a spear which pierced through both Chara and Naruto. Naruto spewed blood out of his chest while Chara was the same as she yelled in an angry voice, DMN. Naruto smiled at this while both collapsed on the ground floor as they laid there still, both their souls shattered which signified that they're both dead. Sans just laid there while saying, "Get dunked on you megalomaniac." He felt his body beginning to turn to dust, showing that he's reached his limit. Well kid, whatever plan you came up with, I hope it keeps Chara from not coming back. It's now up to you kid, the skeleton looked up to the ceiling with a soft sigh, welp, guess I'm going to Grillby's papyrus, do you need anything? With his last words, Sans finally let himself go and turned to dust as the judgment halls was filled with dead silence of dust and 2 corpses lay to rest, or so you think. Naruto woke up after his death, looked around to find himself at a dark void where he's standing in front of a screen that says, Game Over. It seemed his plan worked as he looked around, which he finally found Frisk, who's being imprisoned by black tendrils holding her in place. He rushed over to her. Frisk. Thank goodness you're here, seems like my plan worked. Hold on, I'm gonna get you out of here. At first, Frisk was surprised and then happy to see Naruto but then grew worried. Naruto, you shouldn't be here. You have to leave before it's too late. Naruto created a knife out of determination and started cutting the tendrils. No way. I'm not just gonna leave you here like this, I sacrificed myself to get here to you. Besides, Chara is already been dealt with, so you should be safe now. No. You don't understand. It's not Chara that I'm worried about. It's something else that is corrupting her. Please. You must leave before it finds out you're here. Frisk, calm down. What do you mean something is corrupting her? What could possibly be corrupting her? It can't be any worse than what she already is. Before Frisk could say anything, they heard a familiar voice from the darkness. Oh Naruto, what a pleasant surprise to see you here of all places. Stepping out of the darkness, the figure finally revealed herself as Chara, but something feels different about her. Everything looks normal the way he remembered her, but her ominous red eyes and that smile gives off a dangerous vibe. Naruto looked disturbed at that creepy smile of hers. I don't understand. That's clearly Chara, but for some reason, why do I get this strange feeling that it's not her entirely other than that creepy smile of hers? He thought back and recalled something. The smile was a lot like the one Chara had on her face when that weird black substance was spreading throughout her body. Frisk then spoke up, I told you. That thing isn't Chara, it's someone else that looks like her. Naruto was even more confused. Wait, so if you're saying that isn't Chara herself, then who's that I'm dealing with? Before Frisk could answer him, she was cut off by Chara, who spoke in a sarcastic tone. Well, aren't you an observant one, Frisk? You're right, but you're also wrong. I'm not Chara but rather a part of her. Naruto narrows his eyes. Huh. So you're not Chara but you're a part of her? If you're not her, then who or what are you? Chara, with her creepy smile, said, well, I don't exactly have a name, but if I have to give one while explaining who and what I am, then you could say I am the embodiment of Chara's hatred for humanity. I am the manifestation of her darkness that's been given form from the sins of genocide. I am. As she's about to finish her sentence, Chara's body started to turn dark with the black substance engulfing it until it was nothing more than a dark mass figure, while her face sports a pair of ominously glowing red eyes and that demented smile of hers as she finished her sentence whilst pointing her red knife at Naruto, her hate. Naruto was shocked at this, as the now named hate is what he's currently dealing with now. Is that what you're calling yourself now? Hate. She, or it, said, would you prefer otherwise? After all, it makes sense since I was born from Chara's hatred towards humanity as well as feeding from the hate of others. Due to Chara generating so much hatred as well as the genocide runs. It had only empowered me as well as given me sentient life, which I stand before you now, Naruto. Naruto doesn't know what to make of this new situation, but he can already tell Hate looks extremely dangerous compared to Chara. Speaking of which, wait, then what happened to Chara? What did you do to her? Oh, her. She's not of any importance. All you need to know is that she won't be getting in my way now. She wouldn't let me come out to play, but now you're here, our game can begin, for I am the better half. Besides, Chara's no fun anymore. Play with me, Naruto. I've been wanting to get a piece of you since I seen you in action. I've been so bored. Then it held its knife up its face while Naruto's face is seen from its reflection. Haha, no need to answer, you don't have a choice. Naruto growled at this, his eyes started to glow and his fists clenched. I always have a choice, and my choice is taking you down for good. I'm ending this CYCL of genocide one way or another, and getting rid of you will put an end to this nightmare. Naruto quickly brought out his Bokken and held them at both ends right on time to block an incoming slash from Hate. The dark being proceeded to hack and slash at him with reckless abandon before unleashing a final blow which actually knocked Naruto back a short distance before landing with a skid. Not wasting a moment, Naruto dashed right back at it and retaliated with strikes of his own, but Hate revealed to be quite skilled, blocking his attacks with disturbing ease. He quickly put away his Bokken and clenched his fists with glyphs appearing on them. Lapiste. He conjured large fists made of stone which imitated the motions of his own as he began throwing punches at the opponent. Hate merely smiled, summoning multiple tendrils from the darkness and morphing them into fists of her own to clash with Naruto's in the middle. In that case, Ignis, he dashed forward while thrusting a hand forward to rapidly shoot a barrage of fireballs. Again Hate cut the incoming fireballs apart with its knife, with Naruto drawing close enough to make his move, Macer. He materialized a large into his hands and swung to strike Hate, who blocked it with its arms crossed, with the impact pushing her back a bit. Hate looked back at Naruto with a crazed smile. Interesting, then let's see you try this on for size. It snapped its fingers, making black tendrils shoot out from the darkness towards Naruto. The blonde wreathed his Bokken in the white fiery aura of his determination whilst taking on the storm form to consecutively slash the incoming tendrils that were coming at him from different directions but was beginning to be overwhelmed. Sasuke. He conjured a sword onto his free hand to dual wield but it and his Bokken, hacking and slashing all the while launching slash waves of energy to soon trim down the tendrils to nothing before turning to fling the sword at Hate with the dark being catching it with its bare hand and tossing it aside. Seriously, I can't tell what's what anymore. First is Frisk, then Chara, and now this Hate thing, with one being stronger than the other, thought Naruto with a frown. So far I'm impressed that you're putting up a good fight, but let's see what you do against this. Hate raised its knife which turned crimson red above its head, then stabbed it on the ground with the floor turning red. Welcome to my special hell. Right as it said those words, Naruto felt his senses start screaming at him of impending danger, which instigated him to immediately create a large magical circle under him and form a magical dome-shaped shield made out of his determination right before a massive pillar erupted right underneath his feet, engulfing him into it for some time before dissipating, only to reveal the shield of determination managed to hold strong against the onslaught and disappeared to show that Naruto was unscathed. You survived that? Well, aren't you just full of surprises? But then again, so am I. Hate lunged itself at Naruto, which they immediately battled it out against as they crossed blades and magic throughout the darkness, while Frisk was in awe as she watches the fight unfold before her and hoping that Naruto wins. After jumping away from yet another clash of blades and wills, Hate then spoke up. I must admit, I didn't think you would have lasted this long, considering you were too much of a coward to fight back, but I guess after your fight with Chara, if you can even call it that, almost cost you your life, made you see reason that caused you to change in more ways than one. Naruto refused to respond, being well aware that the dark being was trying to get a rise out of him, and made it known, if you're trying to get a rise out of me by taunting, then you won't get any satisfaction. It's not gonna work. Hate frowned at this. Is that so? Shame, I was hoping to hear you screaming in denial, but I guess after your fight with Chara changed that. Fine. Then I'll just make use in hearing you scream for mercy as I slowly kill you. I'd like to see you try, Naruto responded challengingly. You just don't know when to quit when the odds is stacked against you. It's pointless. Your end is near, for this fight is over. The moment it began, give up. Hate move a hand into the air and suddenly summon numerous knives all around Naruto, giving no way of escaping. It snapped its fingers, commanding them to attack simultaneously. Naruto's mind raced for a way out of this situation, refusing to give in no matter what, when he felt something strange and noticed that the knives were moving rather slow, then felt information flow into his mind. Despite being surrounded by darkness, you can feel willpower concentrating in your soul. You learnt endurance. You learnt endeavor. Naruto suddenly shifted into his determined form. He suddenly dashed at speeds to make it appear as if he was gliding along the ground and seemingly phasing through the knives and successfully escaping from the attack. He rushed right up to Hate and deal a hook punch to the stomach, then pointed an open palm at it with a glowing glyph appearing, Numa. He unleashed a blast of green wind that sent Hate flying and followed up by triggering Endeavor once more to catch up to it in midair. La Piste. He slammed a stone fist on Hate to smash it to the ground and landing afterwards with the Bakken back in his hand. Hate got back to its feet, slightly surprised at this unexpected turn. How very interesting, let's step this up then. The dark being resumed the fight, but was making this harder for Naruto to get around, but somehow, he still managed to push through it. Apparently by learning endurance, the damage he receives from Hate didn't let it get to him that much due to his pain tolerance having increased. It also helped that he can dash fast enough to evade and dodge most of Hate's dangerous attacks thanks to Endeavor. However, both skills aren't without cost, demanding more energy than usual. Hate suddenly asked Naruto, I've got a question for you, Naruto. Do you know what black means? Its knife started to turn black, then Hate was suddenly up in the air. It's Hate. The knife started to glow as it formed a big ball of concentrated hatred, and I have a lot more to share. Hate then points its knife at Naruto, launching the large ball of hate at him. Naruto stared at the ball of hate in shock as he wasn't expecting this kind of attack, but he wasn't gonna let it win. His soul glowed intensely before channeling energy into his Bakken, which he swung to launch a massive energy blast to collide with the ball of hate, cancelling it out with the explosion, knocking Hate back from the force of the aftershock. Naruto was panting a bit from that attack as he's recovering from that, while Hate stood up with that creepy smile of its face. Even after all that, you're still standing. I never imagined a human like you would be this determined in stopping me. You're something special, aren't you? To be honest, I had a feeling you wouldn't succumb to that attack easily. Your tenacity is what kept you alive and gotten you this far. But this is as far as you'll get from here on out. The longer you persist, the less likely you are to survive. Progress all you like, you'll only make my power and my hatred grow. Do give me the pleasure as I erase you from existence. Naruto was getting pushed back as Hate continues throwing everything in its arsenal just to kill Naruto, as he was forced to evade and defend while increasing the pressure on him. What's the matter, Naruto? You going back to defending while running away? That's the sign of a coward would do. Naruto looked a bit triggered and tried to fight back, which did some good a bit, but it also made him predictable, with Hate able to land hits more frequently. Eventually, Hate got Naruto pinned while Frisk was watching in horror at seeing Naruto losing his ground. Hate then said, before I soon end your pitiful life, let me ask you something. Why are you risking your life to rescue Frisk and getting involved in our affairs when this has nothing to do with you? Do you even know how this whole mess started in the first place? Naruto responded, of course I do, it was you who orchestrated this. Hate laughed at this before speaking, wrong. I have nothing to do with this, I was born from the hate that Chara held for humanity. I couldn't have orchestrated this, the real culprit who started this is Frisk. The blonde was shocked at first but retorted, do I look like an idiot to you? There's no way I'll believe that, Frisk couldn't have committed genocide. Hate frowned in response, shut up Naruto, you really don't understand anything, don't you? You clearly don't know how all of this started. That puny human you're trying to save, do you think Chara forced her to commit genocide? Ha! Don't make me laugh. The dark being began to explain the truth behind the genocidal acts. After doing the pacifist route over and over again, she eventually got bored. She started the first genocide run on her own. That idiot just lacked the courage to finish at the very end. It was only then that Chara entered. Chara did try to manipulate her at first, but Frisk didn't want to do it until she was bored enough from being a pacifist to start wanting to commit murder. She's the one who killed everyone by her own hand. Chara was just feeding from everyone's hate. If there's someone to blame here for everything, it's Frisk. Like you, everyone portrays her as a pacifist child that wouldn't hurt a fly. But she's the one who started the genocide. No one ever forced her to do it, despite she could have gone with Chara's manipulation. Chara was just trying to finishing what Frisk started. It makes me sick that she thinks she's above consequences. That she can just toy around with everyone and get away with whatever she wants. Especially have the gall to blame Chara. That's why all of these genocide runs started to happen. And where do you think all that hate generated ended up? Right to me. That's what gave me life after being born from Chara's hate as well from others. I'm not doing anything wrong, I'm just making sure that little traitorous murderer you're trying to save pays for what she did for her sins. Naruto couldn't believe what it said, he refused to believe that what he's hearing. Know why you're lying. You have to be lying. Frisk wouldn't do that, she couldn't. Hate rolled its red eyes in annoyance. Denial, huh? Well, too bad for you, it's the truth. You don't believe me, just ask Frisk yourself. Naruto then turned to Frisk and asked, Frisk, is this true? Tell me you didn't start this mess. Tell me hate is lying. However, Frisk isn't saying anything other than turning away, not facing him whilst shedding tears. Frisk, why are you not saying anything? Why aren't you defending yourself from this slander? Surely you didn't, right? No response but silent weeping is all he got. Frisk, you did started this, didn't you? Yes. Naruto was in shock at what he just learned. He doesn't know what to do as he was just still while Hate just smiling smugly. See? What did I tell you? Chara didn't started this despite the manipulation, it was Frisk who made this all happen. Naruto looked down at this new predicament as if he's slowly losing his will to fight for someone who's the cause of this path of genocide. So Naruto, what are you gonna do now? You know the ugly truth that is Frisk who started this whole mess. If she's left unpunished for the sins of her actions, that killer will use all of her friends as toys forever. Naruto was conflicted at this situation. What can he do after learning the truth behind all of this? But don't worry, she'll get what's coming to her soon enough. Now that you know, you can take this information to your grave, said Hate as it raises its knife while Naruto still looked down. Don't worry, I'll make this quick. Hate slowly brought down its knife onto Naruto. Time suddenly slowed down for him as he finally understood how this whole thing started and felt conflicted, but something deep within his soul had been bubbling inside him and had decided to be unleashed. The next thing you know, his magical aura exploded from Naruto's body with such intensity that it blasted away. Hate rose to its feet and looked to see that Naruto had gotten up as well, looking angry, no pissed at Hate. The next thing that Hate knew was that a glowing fist had buried itself deeply into its face before being sent off its feet, revealing that an angry Naruto had used Endeavor to rush in and deal that powerful punch, but was far from done, having used Endeavor yet again to catch up and strike consecutively with his enhanced Bakken before slamming a palm onto its stomach. Netesco. He fires a purple energy beam to send Hate crashing to the ground and still wasn't letting up by pointing a hand upwards. Vol Fulgur. A glyph appeared to form a lightning bolt that arcs upward and then strikes down on top of Hate. Hate emerged from the smoke and was damaged while frowning at first from this unexpected turn, but then slowly smiled and laughed at this. Ha ha ha. Well, would you look at that, seems like you still got some plenty of fight left in you. You are so special. Show me more of this power. TCH, Naruto clicked his tongue at this and started to let loose energy slashes at Hate, which seemed to make it laugh like a maniac as explosions erupted from the attacks Naruto unleashed onto it. As he stood, Hate came out from the smoke but was battered but still standing. You're really angry, aren't you? Is the truth too much for you to handle that you have to get rough with me? Naruto simply said, no, but you have made a mistake though. Hate looked confused by what he said. What mistake? If Frisk did indeed start this in the first place, then how come she planned to reset until Chara intervened? I'll tell you why. It's because she regretted her actions. She felt bad for betraying her friends and wanted to make up for her sins. The only reason she didn't finish what she started is because she's not a heartless killer unlike you and Chara. Sure, she did the deed, but surely she didn't enjoy it if she truly is a murderer as you say she is. If she wanted to reset to make up for it, then I believe she deserves a second chance to prove herself for her actions. After hearing that, Frisk looked shocked then smiled at this as she shed more tears while Hate's smile turned into a frown as it said, "You would give Frisk a second chance for her actions?" Despite the fact that she killed them in cold blood out of curiosity. Naruto then said, "Yes, people can change their ways if you give them a chance. Something which you wouldn't understand." Hate looked angry. "Very well, if this is what you longing, so be it." Naruto powers up while Hate simply said, "Looks like we'll have to do things the fun way." "You mean the hard way?" Hate replied to the question with a chuckle whilst pointing its knife at Naruto. "Now why would this be hard for me?" Black tendrils suddenly shot out of the smoke towards Naruto, who took on the gale form and rapidly sliced the tendrils into piece. At that moment, Hate moved swiftly through the darkness and struck at Naruto's blind spot with its knife. Naruto's soul pulsed, alerting him of an attack which he quickly reacted to by spinning to deflect at the right moment. Hate made several more attempts to strike from his blind spots whilst using its tendrils to capture or constrict him, but its frustrations grew with every failure and getting knocked back by the blonde. In a fit of rage, Hate lunged at Naruto to stab him with its knife when Naruto did something shocking. Naruto actually caught its knife and crushed it with his hand, shattering it into pieces much to Hate's shock and disbelief. Snapping back into focus, the dark being tried to kick him to the side but he blocked it easily with a forearm then countered with a punch to its gut which let out a shout of pain, but it retaliated with a punch to the face and smiled, but Naruto didn't react to it. He slowly turned to face Hate and looking very angry, which actually scared Hate. Naruto punched Hate again and got punched back, which led to an exchange of punches until they head-butted each other and got blown back. Hate rose its head and got frightened upon seeing Naruto slowly walk towards it. "I'm scared of this boy." "Me, the very being born from hatred, scared?" "No, no." "No." In a fit of rage, Hate got up while phasing up into the air then conjured another red knife in hand. Naruto frowned at this. "We both know that you're running out of tricks at this point." However, Hate merely smiled. "Oh, I know, which is why I'm going to use my last resort." It raises its knife that turned black then created another ball of hatred, but only this time, it's a lot bigger than the previous one. "I commend you for having survived this long, but this charade has gone on long enough. This game of ours is coming to an end, for I am putting my all into this attack. Once I kill you and Frisk, I'll own this timeline, I'll continue to do genocide and erase this timeline, then the next, no one would be able to stop me as this world will know Hate. I won't let that happen, I won't let you torture this world." Naruto declared fearlessly. His soul surged in resonance with his strong emotions as a large number of magical circles around him while gathering every ounce of magic he has. Then the magic circles moved to position themselves in front of him in an ascending diagonal position while Hate begins to drop its ball of hate towards Naruto. "Now. You. Die." As the ball of hate getting closer and closer to Naruto, which he was beginning to respond to with his attack, when a name suddenly popped into his head and called out, "Omega Beam." His soul glowed brightly as it fired a white energy beam which grew in size each time it went through a magic circle which collided with the ball of hatred, leading to a power struggle. Soon, Naruto's technique overcame the ball of hate as it was blasted through, then engulfed Hate, who screamed in pain as it was being purged away. "This can't be happening. I am Hate, I am I." The dark being was unable to utter a word after being blasted into nothingness. The silence within the darkness was more than enough to tell both Naruto and Frisk that the fight is finally over. Naruto dropped down to his knees and started panting heavily due to fatigue from all of the fights back to back and the cost of the spells both learnt and unlocked, even his determined form deactivated on its own. Frisk looked at Naruto in pure amazement. This boy showed up from out of nowhere to help San stop her. He wasn't all that strong when he first fought Chara, but then he changed in mid-battle and proved to be far more powerful when no longer restraining himself. Then he actually broke his limits in order to gain the strength needed to face and eventually defeat Hate. Such a human is unheard of, and yet here he is. She was snapped out of her thoughts when a voice called out to her and turned to see Naruto speaking to her. "Frisk-chan, are you doing okay?" asked Naruto. "Yes, I am, thank you for saving me." The blonde smiled tiredly with a thumbs up. "No problem, just glad that this nightmare is finally over." Frisk smiled, but a guilty look appeared on her face. "Naruto, why would you go so far to save me when we had never met before? Hate spoke the truth about me starting this whole mess on my own. I don't deserve a second chance after what I did." She started to cry. Naruto stared at her silently for a moment before speaking up. "What you did was unforgivable, there's no denying that. Even so, the worst of people are liable to a second chance to change for the better. By having the people who genuinely care forgive you, you will be able to forgive yourself and strive to never repeat past sins." Frisk looked wide-eyed at him saying those words, finding them similar to the one Sans told her in the judgment hall before they fought. Frisk tackled Naruto into a hug with a joyful smile, all the muttering, "Thank you," and the latter patted her back with a smile of his own. At that moment, Naruto caught sight of something moving in the darkness which caused him to frown. At that moment, it lunged swiftly with Frisk as its target. "Frisk, watch out." Naruto reacted quickly enough to shove Frisk away and backhanded the unknown assailant away from them. A closer look reveals it to be a black slime. "Wait, isn't that a piece of hate?" "But I thought you destroyed it," asked Frisk confusedly, looking at the slime in fear. "Must have separated a piece of itself while I was blasting it." Naruto saw that the piece of hate was trying to escape. "Oh no you don't, torpor." He moved a hand out for a glyph to appear underneath the slime and red ropes of energy wrapped around to restrain it. "I'm not going to let you escape to start this nightmare all over again. Time for you to go and stay gone." Volnatesco, he fired a purple energy beam to completely eradicate for good and made sure there wasn't a trace of it left. "Is it gone?" asked Frisk worriedly. Naruto looked around for about a minute. "Yeah, both Chara and Hate are gone for good. It's completely safe for you to use reset without them getting in the way." "But what about you, shouldn't you be the one to do it? I mean, you're most determined out of all of us. Besides, after what I've done and caused this mess, I don't deserve this kind of power as it's too evil for me to use." Frisk looked down in uncertainty. She felt a hand on her shoulder and looked to see Naruto staring at her seriously. "Frisk, it's not the power that makes it evil but rather how you use. While it's true that I'm the most determined enough to press the reset button, I don't belong in this timeline. You own this world but can't abuse the power of reset for selfish reasons. If you want a second chance to correct your mistakes, the first is to never commit genocide ever again and don't use reset unless it's a last resort. Promise me you'll use it for good reasons." Frisk looked unsure, like she can't trust herself. "Frisk, I'm also going to tell you of a way that you can save everyone including Asriel," said Naruto. Frisk looked up in shock at what he just said. She had tried many times to save Asriel, many times but failed, one of the reasons why she ended up taking the genocide route. Naruto went on to tell her about seeking of the articles of the children before her in order to appeal to them to help forge a new soul for Asriel, and that's it. "But, what about you? What will happen once we reset?" asked Frisk worriedly. Naruto hesitated, not knowing what to say. "I honestly don't know. Like I said earlier, I don't belong in this timeline of yours. But whatever happens, I'm sure things will work out." He held a hand out to Frisk with a smile of assurance. "Trust me." Frisk smiled softly and took his hand but decided to ask one more question. Will we see each other again? Who knows, maybe one day we might. Only time will tell. Even if we don't see each other again, just know that I'll always be your friend somewhere out there. Frisk was saddened to hear that there was a 50% chance of not seeing each other again, but even so, she'll still remain grateful that he went this far for her. Deciding to give him one last hug which he didn't hesitate to reciprocate, both Naruto and Frisk summoned the reset button together. "Ready, Frisk?" asked Naruto. Frisk nodded in affirmation. "Ready." And with that, they pressed the reset button together as a bright light engulfed them and the timeline was once again restarted, and hopefully for the last time. With a slight groan, Frisk opened her eyes and slowly sat up to see that she was sitting in a patch of buttercup flowers within the ruins of the underground. Suddenly realizing where she was, Frisk quickly looked around in hopes of finding Naruto there with her, but he was nowhere to be seen, much to her disappointment. She was really hoping that he'd be there, but apparently it wasn't the chance. But still, it was thanks to him that she has another chance to fix her mistakes. Frisk looked up to the hole she had fallen through where the light poured down on her with a grateful smile. Naruto, wherever you are, thank you for everything. I hope we see each other again one day. With that said, Frisk stood up and made her way deeper into the ruins where she'll eventually encounter Floey and soon Toriel as she'll her true pacifist run with advice given to her by Naruto. Unknown to Frisk, she wasn't exactly alone there. Someone emerged from behind a large stone pillar and it was none other than Naruto. Apparently, he had been there with Frisk but woke up first and decided to conceal himself from her until she was gone. So, he also heard what she said and smiled in approval. Well, I'm glad that this genocide run thing is finally over. Hopefully she'll keep her promise to never reset and do the pacifist run to make up for her actions. I'm sure that Sans and Floey will remember, especially the former. I sure hope that things will turn out for the better for her, said Naruto, but then he frowned and thought, but where does this leave me? Where do I go from here on? I may have stopped the genocide run, but I'm still stuck here in this timeline and I have no way to get back home. What am I supposed to do now? He crossed his arms, trying to figure out his next move when he heard someone speak up from behind him. Perhaps I can help you out. Spinning around with a hand on his sheathed Bakken, Naruto turned towards the unknown speaker and noted that it was behind one of the stone pillars. Who's there? Show yourself. The speaker stepped out from behind the pillar to reveal themselves. It turns out to be a girl, but her skin is gray with crimson-red hair while her eyes are black with red iris. She wears a black high-collar long-sleeve dress which covers the knees with red stripes on it, and a pair of dark brown shoes. Naruto was confused. He was unaware that another human fell here, but for some reason this one felt different. This girl looks strangely similar to Frisk or Chara, and something tells him that this mysterious person isn't normal. Who are you? Asked Naruto cautiously. The girl smiled. Someone who has been watching you for a while. I'm quite amazed that you were able to save this timeline by stopping the genocide. CYCL. You really are special. A confused Naruto inquired further, how do you know all that? Just where did you come from? The girl didn't answer the question but rather approached him, which made Naruto tense. What are you? Stay back. His warning was ignored. He was about to unsheath when he felt a hand on his shoulder, and before he could react, both were teleported out of the ruins. Moments later, there were footsteps and Frisk came running back to the clearing. She had met Toriel and was about to follow her to her home when she heard voices. She came running back in hopes that Naruto was there after all, but came upon an empty clearing. Toriel soon caught up and looked at Frisk with concern. What's the matter, my child? You suddenly ran here. Frisk looked around a bit more before bowing her head in sadness. Nothing, thought I heard someone. Seeing Frisk feeling sad, Toriel placed a hand on her head and spoke softly. Please don't be sad, my child. How about you come along to my home? I have something that is sure to lift your spirits. Frisk nodded with a smile, knowing what the motherly queen of monsters has in mind. Okay, Mom. Toriel gasped in shock. Did you just call me Mom? Yes, I did. Frisk nodded with a smile. I won't let you down, not this time. The moment Naruto felt his feet make contact with the ground, he wasted no time to break free from the stranger's grip and creating some distance between them. The blonde took a quick glance around to notice that they were standing in the judgment hall, then focused on the stranger with wariness. Alright, just who the heck are y-? Naruto was disrupted from his questioning when the stranger pointed her hand towards him and he was suddenly assaulted with disturbing visions. He saw himself and found himself as an unwilling spectator to the horrific horrors of Frisk slaughtering monsters firsthand, while some were brief, others were more prolonged, like when she dismembered Papyrus and took her time in crushing his skull while he was still smiling, the look of terror on Monster Kid's face when he was slashed across his chest, the tears falling down Floey's face before being sliced into pieces, the look of resignation on Sans when he realized that he couldn't stop Frisk. But the one thing that stood out from the rest was seeing himself being the victim as he felt a knife slashed him time and again. Naruto's eyes glowed with fiery white aura as he thrusted his hand out with a magic glyph appearing, Union Netesco. The glyph fired a large powerful purple beam of energy which collided with the unknown female, dissipating to reveal that she was nowhere to be found. He dropped to his knees and started to take in deep breaths to calm himself down from what happened. I'm not dead. Nothing happened, just, what did she do to me to witness all that? Those were the memories of different timelines you've just seen. A familiar voice spoke up from above, causing Naruto to look up and see the female stranger hanging upside down from the ceiling. The girl dropped down from the ceiling and landed softly on her feet. I didn't ask for your permission and just made you witness all that. For that, I apologize. Have you calmed down? Naruto's response was to unsheath his Bakken and pointed at the girl with eyes glowing angrily. Do I look like I've calmed down? How can I be calm after you crammed those memories into my head? The unknown female then tried to placate the angry blonde. I know, I'm really sorry for that, but it was necessary for me to show you these memories in order to explain things to you. Explain things to me? You wanted answers for how you got here amongst other things, which is why I'm here. I've brought you here to the Judgment Hall to discuss things with you without any interruptions while Frisk is still at the ruins. Naruto narrowed his eye at this and asked, just who or what are you? I am not Frisk or Chara. You can call me Player, the girl introduced herself. The blonde quirked an eyebrow at the name of the stranger. Player, that's your name? Why is your name based off of a game? Player retorted, why is your name based off a ramen topping? It means maelstrom. Don't call me that, Naruto pointed out in annoyance. Oh, I know, I'm just saying that. Don't judge my name and I won't judge yours, the girl scoffed. Naruto's eye twitched at this, then sighed. Fair enough, so why are you here and what business you have with me? As I said before, I'm here to discuss things to you, just to talk. The reason why I'm here, I want to be everyone's genuine friend. I want a real perfect ending. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this response, especially the latter. Hill decided to bring it up later and asked, okay. So why did you bring me here at the Judgment Hall just to talk? Why couldn't you do that back at the start in the ruins? Player replied, like I said again, it's better to avoid some things that'll interrupt our discussion. So taking us here would be smart. Naruto started to understand where she's getting at. Frisk, Toriel or even Floey would try to listen on us if they talked things there. Naruto asked. So what exactly is it you want to discuss with me about? You spoke about answering my question of how I got here along with other things. So tell me, how did I get here? Player looked at him as she said, you got here through a portal that transported you from your timeline to this timeline that was in the middle of a third genocide run, am I right? Naruto looked a bit creeped out at how right she is. Naruto inquired on this, how do you know that? The girl became silent for a bit, knowing that what she'll say next would make Naruto hostile and wary towards her, but she's prepared for it. She finally told him, because I was the one who took you to this timeline. The blonde stood there blankly upon hearing what she just said, then exploded in anger. You what? Player sighed at his reaction as she knew he would respond to this negatively after finally learning who's responsible for taking him to some random timeline. So you're the culprit who kidnapped me against my will and dropping me into a genocidal timeline of all places. Player responded bluntly, yes, I did, but I have a reason behind this. But Naruto was still angry, and just what is the reason? Do you have any idea what I've gone through? And to learn that my kidnapper is you who brought me here against my will. Just what reason is it that you picked me out of all people you had to take me here? Why? The girl tried to lower his anger. Naruto, please calm down. I know you don't trust me right now, but I need to tell you that all I want is to be everyone's genuine friend. I didn't mean for you to suffer this kind of experience, but I had to do it to see if you can change a genocide timeline. I was testing you to see if you're capable of saving this timeline. However, her explanation only angered Naruto even more. So you were testing me to see if I can save this timeline? Have you ever considered the possibility that there was a chance that I couldn't pull it off? You know what, don't answer that, because at this point, I don't want to know, and quite frankly, he wrapped his Bakken in a white aura. I'm done talking here. I also saw it clearly when I attacked you while checking your stats, and needless to say, your soul is not what you said. Please listen, let me explain. I don't want to hear it. If you want to convince me to listen to you, then prove to me that you're truly not a threat as you say you aren't, Naruto refuted sternly. Player sighed at this. She had expected this to happen but was hoping to avoid this situation. It would seem that she has no choice but to convince him if she wants to gain his trust. A glitch text before player which said, Naruto. LV1. ATK 80 def 60. Determined form. LV1. ATK 105 def 96. Too angry to listen to you. In response to the text, player said, given to what San said to me in another ending. Naruto prepares his attack. Naruto triggered endeavor to quickly dash forward to phase through player to get behind her whilst preparing a magic glyph as she spoke, I am simply a. Before she could finish her sentence, Naruto swung his Bakken to launch a large crescent wave of energy from point-blank range upon her as she was engulfed by the attack. However, he heard player speak through the dust cloud, dirty hacker. Player stepped out of the dust cloud completely unscathed, much to Naruto's shock, even more so when he saw that her HP never went down even though his attack was nothing to scoff. What the? How could she take those attacks head-on without receiving any damage? And what did she mean by, dirty hacker? Is she telling me she's a hacker of some sort, said Naruto in thought as he has no idea what he's dealing with here. Player then spoke, I did kidnap you, transported you into this timeline without your permission. And I stood by and let everyone's effort for future goes to waste. While saying that, she suddenly summoned pellets around her which surprised Naruto as he recognized them to be similar to Floey's move while getting tense upon seeing player's eyes turning black like how Chara's eyes did. Hey, what are you planning here? Asked Naruto, getting ready for whatever player does next, which she didn't answer him as she finished her sentence. But because of that, I am determined. After saying that, the pellets immediately coming towards Naruto. I knew it. I knew she was a threat. The blonde held up his Bakken and prepared to defend himself for the incoming attack. Nothing happened, making him look to see player holding a pellet in her hand out to Naruto. Friendliness pellets Databayo. Did you just say my verbal tick? Asked Naruto, not knowing how to react and his anger momentarily forgotten. Player smiled and winked mischievously with her tongue sticking out, well I figured you'd like it. You tend to say that quite often at times when you get excited in your world. It's cute. Naruto didn't know what to say to that response and blushed a bit when he was called cute like that due to his verbal tick whilst mumbling, I'm not cute, which player giggled a bit at this as he tried to compose himself. Finally calming down and composing himself, Naruto spoke up anyways, aside from that, I suppose I'll stop now and hear your explanation since you haven't been hostile towards me and didn't retaliate after I had attacked you. But it doesn't mean that I trust you. Unless you can convince me to earn my trust, I won't believe you and consider you untrustworthy. And it's not easy to convince an Uzumaki like me. The girl retorted in a deadpan voice with a straight face, you are just stubborn, which Naruto looked away but wouldn't deny that claim. Well, that's one way of putting it. Naruto had to admit that he and his mother can be stubborn at times, especially his mother. How Minato is able to persuade them is a secret which he kept to himself. Player just shook her head at this but saw that she could finally explain herself now that Naruto's temper has been cooled down. In my world, to us, this world is just a game. We usually use a window as a medium to control other worlds' living beings and interact with their world. The process of interacting is just playing to us. Naruto frowned at this, clearly not liking that answer as he spoke with an edge in his tone, are you telling me that you see these worlds as playthings to you? She noticed his change in expression and quickly answered, I in particular don't see the worlds as playthings. In conclusion, people like us who interfere with other worlds are generally called player. We control Frisk's soul by using our own determination to replace hers which she can't even feel. In other words, she was never the one who makes the choices. Naruto scowled at this bit of information he was given, so there are players out there who control Frisk. It's scary to think about some outside force capable of controlling you without even knowing or can't do anything about it. Okay, but what about Chara? How does she come to play in all of this? Well, the thing about Chara is that she never interfered with Frisk. Players are the ones Chara keeps fighting persistently. However, in this case, Chara was the one who made her choices, and the same goes for Frisk. Naruto was silent at this to learn from what he's hearing. I see. Player saw that Naruto had taken the information in before continuing. Now I will explain my LV first. Players usually don't let their own souls enter other worlds. However, she snapped her fingers, causing the entire judgment hall to become black like a void, alarming Naruto. This darkness is my soul. Naruto was shocked at this information. This whole darkness that Naruto was tensing is her soul. It is too big. So I cut a little piece and put it in this body, which is made by copying parts of Frisk's code. When I interfered with this world, I didn't kill any monsters. I only play for good endings. While I may have some ideas, but I still have no solid idea as to why this soul's LV is so high. But I have an assumption that the worlds I interfere with are more than just this one. The themes of those worlds are not always about love and peace. In a world that is kill or be killed, if I have a rightful reason to kill, I won't say no. If this number is not love but level, then everything makes sense. Naruto frowned with his arms crossed, trying to understand her explanation. However, this number is gained from hurting others and probably by extension, you in getting involved. No matter the reason being right or wrong, I did hurt others. If you still don't trust me, I cannot say no to you, too. I'll understand and don't blame you if you don't trust me at all. Naruto took all this information from what he just learned as he's in thought of what he'll say next. After thinking for a while, he has made his concluded decision as he said with his glowing eyes, seems like we've reached the conclusion. Even if I were to attack your soul, your HP won't go down, can't even hurt you in a real way. Right? Player nodded in response, that's right. Naruto relaxed a bit with a sigh. Well then, I guess there's no point in continuing this if I can't harm you and I don't sense any lies, so that confirms me you're telling the truth. However, there is one question that's been bugging me. He looked at her with a serious expression. What is it that you want by telling me all these, and why me specifically? You said you didn't kill any monsters, right? Then how exactly do you know the consequence of genocide? Player knew he would ask this, but honestly, she had hoped he wouldn't. She frowned with hesitation for a bit before she deciding to give him the answer while looking away. Because I am a coward. Naruto's response to this was, what? He hadn't expected her to give him such a strange answer. Seeing his confusion, player proceeded to explain, during Frisk's journey, I slowly grew attracted to this world. Just because Frisk's journey had ended, I wouldn't be able to see the monsters she's made friends with. I didn't want that, I wanted to be friends with everyone. Instead of watching Frisk make friends, I want to be part of this. Even though I had never hurt the monsters, but I saw other players who did. After seeing such things will happen, after seeing such endings. I could no longer just stand and watch. So I tore up my soul to create my body. That's why I'm standing here now. I want a true happy ending. Naruto was quite surprised at hearing this. She's clearly genuine about wanting to be everyone's friend. Guess that would explain her longing to obtain a perfect ending. Naruto immediately stepped back upon seeing player come up to his face with her hand out whilst sporting a creepy face with black substance coming out of her black eye sockets as she spoke. Naruto, the reason why I'm telling you everything is because, I want to be your friend. The blonde was a bit creeped out by her approach. Hey, last I checked, you made me experience the horrors of genocide and had me see the memories of it. That's not what friends are supposed to do. Player's eyes was back to normal as she covered her mouth in embarrassment. Sorry, but after visiting your world and learning about how you and Frisk achieved in your timeline without the need of reset, I was trying to help you as you were dealing with your personal issues, so I thought sending you here would help you to overcome with whatever that was bugging you and at the same time test you. Also, I promised to a certain skeleton that I won't hide truth from friends. Naruto narrowed his eyes since he wasn't sure whether he should be creeped out by her reasoning or not. Also, what did she mean by a certain skeleton? He could only assume it's either Sans or Papyrus, but for some strange reason, he feels that it's the former as he's not one to make promises. Well, whoever let you make such promise must be a big JRK. Then Naruto thought of something and brought it up, but what I don't understand though is why you had to choose me to save this timeline. Why couldn't you do it yourself? Given you're a hacker, shouldn't you have just I don't know, stopped this yourself? You seem capable of doing so. Player sighed at the question. While it's true I am capable of stopping a genocide run on my own, which I've done numerous times in the past, but the problem with that is I would get kicked out from this world. If I tried to change the timeline massively, some kind of power will erase my impact and make the timeline go back to the way it was. So unfortunately I can't interfere with the timeline unless it's something minor that wouldn't change much by my influence. Naruto seems to understand her reasons now after hearing this. I guess that would explain why she couldn't do it herself. If she did try to change in a larger scale, something would just kick her out and the world she tried to change would repair itself anyways. I think I now understand why she used my help as well as her goals of wanting a perfect ending. Guess she's not that bad of a person as I thought she was. All she really wants is to be part of the world where she can be friends with everyone. He turned to speak to her whilst finally sheathing his bakken. Well, I suppose all my questions have been answered, so you earned my trust. I'll forgive you since this whole dreadful experience had benefited me in more ways than one, which is a plus for helping with my personal issues, so I'll let this slide. So what happens now? Player smiled happily, seeing that Naruto was no longer distrusting and willing to see her as a friend. I'll be sending you home now. Naruto's eyes widened in shock. You can do that? Of course, I was the one that brought you here, so I can send you back. Besides, this is just a sequence of code to me. This would be a walk in a park for a hacker like me. Since you've passed my test of saving this timeline and ended the cycle of genocide, Frisk should be able to make friends again and fix her mistakes, and they don't have to be enemies anymore. There will be only perfect endings in this world. So thank you, Naruto. For you to make this timeline possible only proves you're truly special. You're welcome. Player waved her hands in a large circle that formed a portal out of code, which is similar to how he encountered the other one from his world before getting sucked into it. Well, let's go. I'm sure you want to return back to your world again to reunite with your friends and family, right? Right. Naruto eagerly jumped into the portal with Player following after him. Somewhere in the middle of a forest clearing at night, a portal appeared which both Naruto and Player emerged out from as he realized he's back at the same training ground where he got sucked by that portal, which means he's back to his own timeline. Naruto looked up to the sky to see that it's night time, then he checked his phone which showed it's 1 a.m. at night. That and his text messages started to pop up as well as missed calls from his mom and some of his friends that have been trying to reach him. Guess it didn't come through when he was in the other timeline. The others must be worried about him, especially his mother. He can already imagine what she's going through and how much trouble he's in once he returns home. Well, best to get it over with and hope he can clear up his situation. But before that, he looked at Player and said, "Thanks for returning me back to my world." The girl simply nodded with a smile. "It's no problem, plus it's the least I can do after the trouble I caused you." "So, what will you do now?" asked Naruto. "I'm gonna return back to where I came from. I have some things I need to take care of. For now, this is where we part ways. Well, take care of yourself and please don't kidnap random people if you want their help. At least give them a heads up before sending someone to a different timeline." Player turned away from Naruto's pointed look in embarrassment. "Yeah, I'll keep that in mind next time." "Well, safe travels and hope one day you'll achieve your goal," said Naruto, which the girl responded with a smile. "Thanks, Naruto. Farewell." As she said her goodbyes, Player teleported away to somewhere else as Naruto waved before sighing to himself. "Well, best I get started making my way back home," said Naruto, and he soon began to leave his training ground towards his neighborhood but was unaware that a floating shadowy silhouette was following him. Naruto eventually made it to his house and stopped before the door, then he took a deep breath as he knew he'll have to explain himself why he was gone for this long. He rang the doorbell, which soon it opened by Kushina, which she gasped at seeing Naruto, while Nikken squeezed through as the wolf pup leapt into his arms to nuzzle him while Kushina did the same. She then gave Naruto an angry expression and he knew he was in serious trouble. "Naruto! Where have you been? Do you have any idea how worried I was? Why haven't you called or texted me back? I had to ask our friends for help but they couldn't find you and all of a sudden you came back late at night. You are in big trouble, mister. Naruto waved a hand to try and calm his mother down. Mom, please calm down. I know that my situation doesn't look good but I can explain. Kushina didn't look convinced at all. Oh, and how do you intend to explain yourself exactly for your sudden disappearance? Because whatever excuse you come up with, you're still going to be in big trouble. So explain yourself. Where were you? The young Uzumaki didn't show it but on the inside, he was nervous from how extremely upset his mother is feeling and nothing good would come out of it. He could practically feel her dangerous aura around her as if he could see her red hair flowing menacingly like 9 tails waving around. Heck, Nikken was quivering at this and appeared to be seconds from leaping off his arms to find a place to hide from her potential wrath. Mom, I understand you're angry but I have a very good explanation about my disappearance and I'll explain everything but I rather it'll be tomorrow because I want everyone here to know where I've been. It's very important. Kushina narrowed her eyes. Why couldn't you just tell me now? Surely it can't be that important that would cause you to disappear. Are you just trying to get out of this situation? Naruto shook his head knowing how stubborn his mother can be. No, I'm not. I'm being serious, this is very important as I rather have everyone here know about this. Please. I promise you I'll tell you the truth about everything. Kushina stared at him with a stern look as if looking for any deception but found none. Soon she just sighed and said, fine, we'll talk about this tomorrow. I'll give the others a call to come over to hear you out. Not to mention it's too late for this. But don't think you're off the hook, mister. Until you tell us why you were gone and if you can manage pull an excuse that can surprise me, you're going to be grounded for a whole month. Naruto paled at hearing this but he understands as he walked up to his room with Nikken following suit. After reaching his room, he let out a sigh as he muttered, well that could have gone better. But at least I'm back home again, which he pet Nikken making the pup wag his tail in content. He took a quick shower and put on his pajamas before laying on the bed with Nikken joining in and placing his head on the boy's stomach to receive his head pats. The poor pup had been feeling miserable during the blonde's absence and isn't planning on letting him out of his sight this time. Naruto looked up to the ceiling of his room while thinking, how am I gonna explain to them about how I ended up in another timeline? The thought of it sounded really ridiculous and impossible, but the thing is I have proof which is the disc that the other Alphys gave me. That should be enough evidence to support where I've been but I fear this may have some drawbacks as I might have to reveal my secret and it's not just mine, but Frisk's and Israel's as well. I don't know how they'll take the news but all I know is I might have to come clean with everything and I mean, everything that we kept to ourselves. Ugh, what am I going to do? Nikken looked at the boy in concern and nuzzled his stomach to calm him down. Looks like someone is in a tight spot. Can't say I blame you of the situation you're in. He suddenly heard a female voice in his room that sounded very familiar to him in the other timeline. Naruto looked around as he demanded, who's there? Show yourself. I'm up here, idiot. Naruto looked up and was wide-eyed at seeing a familiar figure which so happens to be Chara floating above in front of him. See Chara. How are you here in my room? No, better yet, how are you here in my timeline? Chara rolled her eyes at seeing him looking alarmed at seeing her here. Oh relax will you, I don't know how I'm here, I'm just as shocked and confused as you are. However Naruto doesn't seem to believe her of not having any bad intentions but he's not sensing any hate in her which calmed him down a bit but refused to let his guard down, his magic building up to be used. I don't believe that. You shouldn't even be here so I don't understand how you ended up here in my timeline and I'm not about to let you disrupt everything Frisk and I created here if you're planning to get revenge on me or create a genocide in my timeline. Chara quickly spoke up upon seeing the blonde's magic power rising. Whoa. Look, I'm telling you, I really don't know how I end up here and I'm not here for any of that, honest. I have no intention of causing you harm or changing your timeline so chill out. Besides, I can only suspect that I might have taken refuge into your soul after you purged both me and my hate out of Frisk. Naruto stared at her a bit as he calmed down a bit again. Okay, but why me though? Why take refuge into my soul? Why not go back to Frisk? I would have returned back to Frisk were it not for you purging me out in the process, and I was given no choice but to live in your soul just moments before you and Frisk made a reset. Naruto couldn't believe his luck right now from what he's hearing. Great, just my luck. As if me getting involved in your genocide timeline against my will wasn't enough. Now you somehow decided to take refuge into my soul without my permission. Chara just rolled her eyes while groaning, oh please, it's not like I asked to live in your soul. I had no choice, geez. If it makes you feel any better, I'm not gonna take over your body if it's any consolation. Not like I could regardless due to you being far too determined. Sigh, this couldn't get any worse. Well, you're about to face grounding as well as your privileges are on the line. Naruto just gave her a stoic look, is that supposed to make me feel better? She smirked while saying, no, but I felt like pointing it out to you. Naruto just rolled his eyes while saying in a sarcastic tone, gee, thanks for the reminder. No problem. Nikken looked at Naruto in confusion, wondering who his MSTR was talking to that he wasn't seeing. But the wolf pup could somehow sense some sort of presence in the room with them, but it doesn't have any ill intent towards them. Naruto looked at the floating Chara to speak to her, hey, I just now realized that you're a lot mellow compared to how you were before. Did me purging your hate have anything to do with that? Chara then hummed in thought, I suppose so. After all, it did made me a genocidal maniac when it started to corrupt me, now I feel like I can a lot more clearly now and not quick to anger. Naruto nodded in understanding, then it's a good thing I got rid of it. At least that thing won't be corrupting anyone else. Both were silent for a while until Naruto spoke up again, hey, do you mind if I ask you a question? Chara shrugged in response, sure, ask away. You said you took refuge into my soul before Frisk and I used reset, right? That's what I said, yes. Then by any chance, were you awakened after the reset was done? Naruto was wondering if she was aware of the conversation he had with Player after being in his soul and making that reset. Chara frowned thoughtfully, no I wasn't. Normally I would have been awakened immediately after a reset was made, but since I was forced to take refuge into your soul after purging my hate along with me and made a true reset, it took me a while to be awakened since I wasn't familiar with your soul. Naruto pondered at this but accepted her answer, then asked another question, I've been thinking, do you mind telling me, why do you hate humanity? Chara looked at him while asking seriously, why do you want to know about that? Well, since you're gonna be stuck with me in my soul with no way back to your timeline, perhaps we can get to know each other better and maybe start all over as friends. Chara gave it some thought then said, I don't think I want to go back to my timeline. Huh? But why? It's because of what I did in my timeline. The killings taking control of Frisk, making her do genocide runs, ruining her life. Chara sighed to herself, I think it would be better if I don't come back and let them live their normal lives without me, as I just ruined their hopes and dreams. Besides, there's no hope for me anyways, not like it has been from the beginning. Naruto looked confused by this but felt sad at how she's depreciating herself. Hey, come on Chara, don't be like that. There's always hope for you, maybe not in your timeline but perhaps here in mine. You can start anew here. If your timeline is anything similar to mine, then you should feel right at home here. Chara looked unsure, really? After everything I did to you and what I committed in my timeline? Why are you being nice to me all of a sudden when you were being cautious towards me? Because I don't sense any bad intent from you, as you're being genuine, which put me at ease. As for why I'm being nice, maybe you just need a friend. I don't know what you've been through before your death, but I would like to hear your story to get to know you if you want. Besides, I believe people can change. Even the worst people can too as well if you just try. Chara looked wide-eyed at what he just said, as it's almost similar to what Sans would say in the judgment hall before fighting. Naruto saw her looking shocked as he asked, Chara, you alright? You look a bit disturbed, was it something I said? Chara shook her head as she got back to her senses, and nothing, it's nothing. I'm fine, it's just I wasn't expecting those words you said to be similar to what that boneheaded comedian would say before our fight. Naruto caught on to what she said, oh I'm sorry, I didn't to dash. Forget it, it's fine. I get what you meant. Naruto doesn't look convinced but decided not to push it. Well, if you want to talk about it, I'm always here to listen to you and perhaps help you out. Just don't be afraid to ask, said Naruto while giving her a foxy grin which made Chara's rosy cheeks go red at seeing this but kept her composure but still smiled. Thanks, I'll keep that in mind. Chara turned to face him fully while still floating in the air. Anyways, about your question about my hatred for humanity, you really want to hear my story? Naruto nodded his head as she wasn't sure at first but felt like she can trust him. So she began telling her reasons for why she hated humanity, how they constantly fought each other for small to big things, how she was treated like a plague to be avoided due to her red eyes, etc. That was until she decided to end it all in Mtiabat, but instead she met Asriel, the dreamer family that took her in and even adopted her as part of their own. She was happy, but when she heard about the barrier that's trapping the monsters, she wanted to help them to set them free, which resulted the plan, as she poisoned herself by eating buttercup flowers, which resulted her death, and had Asriel absorb her soul, which enabled him pass through the barrier while granting her wish to be laid in flower patch in the middle of the village. However, it resulted humanity taking away her brother she truly cared about despite trying to make him to fight back. But he refused, which got himself killed by humans. After that, her hatred grew for humanity to the point she wanted the destruction of humanity, which made her hate grew as she was generating so much of it that it made her get mad at monster kind, but mostly Asriel for not doing as he was told and seemingly betraying her. Needless to say, her life was a horrible one. Naruto was shocked to say the least. He had no idea what she's been through up until now. Chara, I don't know what to say. Chara interrupted him, then don't. My life hardly matters now, as I'm sure it's meaningless. I'm just a freak that I'm known for anyways. Naruto objects this as he said, that's not true. You are anything but a freak. I think you're nice, a bit snarky but nice in general when you feel like it. They just didn't try to understand you. Also, I think your red eyes are appealing, and I'll admit when we fought, I thought your glowing red eyes looked cool while at the same time menacingly. Chara's already rosy cheeks reddened more by the blonde's genuine compliment. No one had ever said anything nice about her, especially her eyes, which flustered. Her, You think my eyes are appealing? I idiot. Where is this coming from? Naruto looked confused. What? I'm being honest with you right now. Ugh. Never mind. But still, thanks for the compliment though. No problem. Well, I better get some sleep as tomorrow is gonna require everything I have if I'm going to explain things. Which Chara gave a shrug of her shoulders, I'm sure. Well, get some rest Naruto, you're gonna need it, which he nodded and was getting into his blanket with Nikken laying next to him. Before Naruto was about to sleep, he heard Chara say, Naruto, thanks for listening to my story. I never told anyone this, not even my brother Asriel, about my past and why I hated humanity. So for what is worth, I want to be friends with you as well as living here in your timeline if that's alright with you. Naruto smiled in response, sure, I'm happy to be friends with you and no problem. If it helps you trust me more, I'm more than happy to help. Also sure, you can live here since you're literally bound to me anyways, so I don't mind you here, just try not to do anything weird to me without me knowing, okay? Chara just giggled at this as she said, sure Whiskers, it's a deal. Whiskers, huh? Well, I suppose I don't mind you calling me that as it's a start. Anyways, good night Chara. Good night Naruto. And with that Naruto went to sleep while Chara watches over him before sitting down next to his bed as she was thinking, friends, I suppose it would be nice to start all over. A new beginning for me. Thanks Whiskers. She disappeared into his soul and felt his energy wrap around her like a warm blanket which lulled her into a peaceful slumber, one of her very first since she was truly free of her hate and no longer angry at anything and everything. In the next morning, Naruto was awoken by the rays of the rising sun, albeit started grumbling since he wanted to sleep a bit more. He rose from his bed, which woke up Nikken with the wolf pup licking him affectionately in greeting. Chara then appeared before him, good morning, Whiskers. Naruto nodded in response, morning to you too Chara, mind waiting while I go and take a bath before putting on some clothes? Sure, take all the time you need, the blonde boy went to take his bath and changed into his new clothes for the day when Chara floated up to him. "Hey Naruto, just to let you know, today's the day you're gonna tell your mother and your friends about why you were gone as well as providing good evidence to avoid getting grounded." Naruto stopped what he was doing and turned to Chara, rolling his eyes in mild annoyance upon seeing her smirk at him before giving a retort. "Thanks for the reminder, I'm fully aware of that. But I should be fine as I have proof for it, so things should go smoothly, I hope." Chara quirked an eyebrow at the last part of the sentence. "You hope?" That doesn't sound very reassuring. Naruto shrugged in response. "It really depends on how I explain it, but nonetheless, everything should be fine as long as I don't screw it up." Chara was silent for a while but gave him a nod as they made their way downstairs to the kitchen where they see Kushina making breakfast. "Morning son, I made pancakes for you," said Kushina as she served breakfast on the table with Naruto taking his seat and thanking her for the food. Then they began to eat. Then she decided to speak up. "So I hope you've come up with a good excuse for your sudden disappearance yesterday, because if it doesn't surprise me and not being truthful, you're gonna be facing grounding for a year. Understand?" "Mom, I assure you, it's not an excuse of anything, and I'll be telling you and our friends everything about my disappearance, and I mean everything. You know I never lie about anything," said Naruto in a serious tone. Kushina looked at her son for a moment then said, "All right, I'll trust your word for now. For your sake, this explanation of yours better be good. I already called up the others so they'll be here in 2 hours, so be ready." Naruto just nodded. Chara simply said, "Awkward." "Shut it Chara," Naruto grumbled mentally, making the ghost girl giggle in amusement. After finishing eating breakfast, they waited on the others as they chilled for a bit by watching TV but didn't exactly start up a conversation given the tension between them amongst other things. 2 hours later, they heard the door bell ring, which prompted Kushina to open the door to reveal the Dreamer family having arrived. Ascari and Toriel walked in, followed closely by Frisk and Asriel. The moment they saw Naruto sitting on the sofa in the living room, Toriel, Frisk and Asriel rushed over to, with the former embracing him. "My child. You're back. It's a relief to see you returned," said Toriel joyfully. Asriel spoke in turn, "We were worried about you. You suddenly vanished and you weren't answering our calls. What happened?" Frisk added in support, "Yeah, I was afraid that something bad had happened to you." Naruto rubbed the back of his head, feeling a bit guilty, seeing how worried they are. "Ah geez, I'm sorry you guys. I didn't mean to make you all worried about me this much. But don't worry, I'll explain why when everyone gets here, as it requires a lot of explanation. For now just relax for the time being." Both Asriel and Frisk look a bit calm while the latter said, "All right, but promise us you'll never go up and vanish on us again, okay?" Asriel nodded in agreement. Naruto placed his hands on top of their heads, rubbing them as he said, "I don't know about that, but I'll promise for you too if it calms you both down." Apparently, it did the trick, as Frisk seemed to blush by Naruto's hand brushing against her hair, while Asriel just giggled while half-heartedly trying to stop Naruto from petting him. Kushina along with Toriel and Ascari smiled at the interaction between the children, seeing Asriel and Frisk looking up to Naruto to be adorable. While this was happening, Chara was just staring at everyone as they interacted with each other, but the only thing that had a majority of her attention was Asriel. She couldn't believe what she's seeing, as if she's looking at a ghost in front of her. Her brother of this timeline is alive. But how is that possible? His soul was lost. How is it that Naruto managed to bring him back to life? Naruto then noticed Chara staring at Asriel for a long time and started to realize why. In her timeline, her brother is still dead while remained as a flower, but here he isn't anymore. So, he tried asking her, "Chara, you alright?" Chara then looked at Naruto and spoke in a demanding tone, How is Asriel of your timeline still alive? He's dead and yet he's here. Tell me Whiskers, how did you bring him back to life?" Naruto tried to placate the irritated ghost girl. "Chara, calm down, I can understand why you're asking me this. The reason our Asriel is alive now is because Frisk and I along with the 6 fallen human souls gave portions of our soul power to Asriel, which resulted in giving him a new soul. His soul is that of a rainbow, as we call his soul trait, Miracle." Chara was in shock and became intrigued about the new soul he now has. She nodded silently in acceptance of his answer while just watching the others, but mainly Asriel, Azzy. Naruto felt bad for her, understanding how she feels at the moment. He wishes he could help her, but there's nothing he can do about it for now. Anyways, not long after, they heard the door bell ring, which happens to be the skeleton brothers, Sans and Papyrus. Papyrus greeted Kushina with respect, while Sans did the same while Kushina was letting them in. "Ah! Human Naruto, you have returned to us safe and sound," said Papyrus happily. Sans smiled lazily. "Yeah kid, where you run off to? Your mom was so worried she was planning on having a search party to the authorities." Naruto groaned upon hearing this. "That bad huh? I didn't think it got that bad, but I guess I understand her worries. Anyways, I'll explain about it later, just have a seat while we wait for the others to show up." Papyrus nodded in acceptance. "Very well, human Naruto. Come on Sans. Be a normal guest and try not to sleep on the couch." Sans shrugged his shoulders. "Can't promise you that bro," making Papyrus groan at this. "Why am I not surprised to hear that?" They took a seat on the couch, which Sans looked to have immediately fallen asleep, judging by how he was slouching on the couch, and Papyrus is not even going to bother with him anymore. Naruto heard the tone of disdain in Chara's voice when she saw Sans. "Great, the comedian is here. Of course he along with his brother would show up here." Naruto frowned at this and asked, "Chara, I get you don't like Sans all that much due to your experience with him in your timeline, but to be fair, you did kill his brother without remorse and he just retaliated. That and many others as well, despite you were corrupted by your hate. But what I don't understand is why you don't like Papyrus. He's a lovable guy. What do you have against him?" Chara was silent for a moment, then said, "Look Whiskers, I don't exactly hate him. On the contrary, I actually like that goofball. Heck, I even envy his simple-minded personality. It's just that his line of thinking that everyone can change for the better being what I despise. He believes that even the worst person can change if they tried. I don't believe those words, as no one can redeem themselves from their actions. He has no idea how the world works from the surface, as he along with monster kind have been trapped down in the underground for a very long time. His carefree personality is too good for this world, with reality is a cruel place where humanity constantly fights against each other from little to big things, which is why we have so many wars, crimes, discrimination, and other horrific atrocities that mankind has ever done in history and is still happening to this day. That's why I'll always hate humanity, because it's irredeemable. He needs to face reality that there are others that can't be changed." Naruto didn't know what to say, but he couldn't really fault her since what she said is true towards humanity, and even he couldn't help but felt disgusted by it at how humanity has become over the years of history. While it's true that there are bad humans who still continue to do bad things which resulted greed, ambition and hatred that we are known for. But not all of them are bad though, there are others out there who are good. Take me and Frisk for example. We wanted to save the monsters from the underground and succeeded, and even soon to became their ambassadors. You may have lost faith towards humanity, but you can't give up on those who aren't bad. You just gotta give them a chance to prove to you there's still hope for them to change." Chara wasn't all that convinced. "We'll see if that ever happens," Naruto just mentally sighed, seeing that she still holds resentment towards humanity, which may take time for her to change her view. He'll just have to deal with it later. For the third time, the doorbell rang, and it was Undine and Alphys having arrived. After greeting Kushina, Undine rushed in upon seeing Naruto and gave him a bone-crushing hug as she demanded, "Nga! Where have you been? I had to ask both Dogami and Dogaressa to track you down, but you suddenly up and vanished as soon we discovered your hidden training ground, which by the way, I approve but feel that it needs a proper training setup, which Papyrus and I will help you with that." Naruto wasn't sure how to feel about them discovering his training ground other than feeling his bones being crushed. "Speaking of which, sorry to worry you, but can you please put me down? You're crushing me," said Naruto in pain. "You Undine, please put him down," Alphys spoke up, making Undine comply with a sheepish grin. With Naruto was feeling slight pain in his spine but was able to fix that by stretching his back a bit. Anyways, sorry about all this, but like I said to the others, I'll explain once everyone is here, said Naruto. Alright then, the shy scientist nodded in understanding while Undyne grumbled a bit before they went to take their seats. As they get settled, the door rang, which this time Naruto beats Kushina to the door and he opened it, which showed that it was Red. Upon seeing Red, Naruto became a little nervous as he can see Red gasped the moment she saw his sudden return and greeted meekly, "Hey Red." She stood there for a moment before lunging at him with a hug, which the blonde returned. But the next thing he knew was that she suddenly grabbed him by the collar of his shirt and started yelling. "Naruto! Where were you? Do you have any idea how worried everyone was? Especially me. I thought something bad had happened to you and my parents couldn't track you. So you'd better start talking. Where did you run off to without telling any of us?" said Red whilst showing her baby red expression and comically shaking Naruto to get answers out of him, while the others who are watching just sweat dropped. Kushina was just smirking at Red as she has her respect and was also feeling proud since it reminded her of how she would act around Minato. Thinking about that made her smile a bit at the memories, but didn't let the past get to her cause she needs to move on like he would want it that way. Anyways, she snapped back to reality when she heard Naruto talk to Red. "Red. Please calm down. I know you're upset, but I'll explain everything. I'm sorry I made everyone worry about me, but I have a good explanation about my disappearance. So please stop shaking me and let me go." Red stared at Naruto for a bit before finally let him go. "Fine, but this explanation of yours better be worth it." "It will be, trust me," said Naruto with an assuring smile, making Red turn away to hide her blush with a small mumble. "You dork." She walked in and took a seat with her friends as the others had different thoughts about that. Now that everyone is here, Naruto was beginning to get everyone's attention when he heard Chara ask a question. "Hey Whiskers, who's the girl with the red hood?" Naruto raised an eyebrow before answering, "Oh, her. That's Red. I'm surprised you don't know her. I figured you have encountered her in your timeline." Hearing this made Chara hum in thought before snapping her fingers in realization. "Oh. Red. Now I remember her. That Red who's part of the Royal Guard. I didn't recognize her in that different outfit she's now wearing. Especially without her hood up and the fact she's actually a dog, which seems accurate due to her barking, but now I seem to recall encountering her in my timeline. Frisk and I met her at the core by chance. At first, she was hostile towards us when Frisk was making friends with her. But with me, well, she put up a good fight than I thought she would, especially with those weird guardians of hers that she summoned against me." Naruto was neutral about this but asked, "You didn't kill her in your timeline, did you?" The ghost noticed the tone in his voice and answered truthfully, "Yes Whiskers, I killed her when I was in my genocidal phase, sorry." Naruto sighed at this, so Red had also died in that genocide run of hers. At least he didn't come across her dusty remains when he was there. But then Chara mentioned something about Red's guardians, which made him ask, "Wait, you mentioned in your timeline, Red was able to summon her guardians during your fight. Is that true?" Chakra raised an eyebrow but replied, "Yeah." "Why do you ask? Doesn't your Red do the same?" "No, at least not yet. She's working on how to summon them in battle but just haven't been able to pull it off at the moment." "Interesting. I suppose it might have something to do with her emotions. When I was trying to kill her, she wanted no part of getting my way and was willing to let me go while I still had intentions of murdering her. She was quite angry, and that anger must have allowed her to summon her guardians at will. So if I had to guess, it's most likely it's her emotions of impending danger allowed her to summon them." Naruto was interested at this information. "So basically it's like in the anime where your life is endangered, then you're forced to do something which would lead to you unlocking something, or your anger lets you gain access to an inner power." He'll keep this information to himself since he'll have to talk to Undyne about this to help Red later. "I see, that would make sense. Well, thanks for the info. Maybe that'll help her summon her guardians. Won't hurt to give it a try later." "Sure, no problem," Chara shrugged her shoulders. Now with that out of the way, Naruto began to gain everyone's attention while they were chatting with each other before giving him their utmost attention as he held out a disc with his right hand. I just wanted to say thank you all for coming over today. Now I'm sure all of you have questions regarding where I've been due to my sudden disappearance as well as me being unable to receive nor respond back to any of your texts and calls. Well, I want you all to hold off on your questions because this disc that I have here contains the information on where I've been and what has happened. But before I play it, I want to ask you guys a few questions regarding my disappearance, said Naruto. Then he looked at Undyne. Undyne, you mentioned something about asking Dogami and Dogoressa in searching for me which led to no leads. Undyne nodded with a small frown. Yeah, I was with them when they tried to track down your scent after your mom asked for my help. She told us where you went as we were led to an open forest clearing which so happens to be your training ground. But the strangest thing is that your scent stopped somewhere at the trees, almost as if you vanished without a trace and there's nothing else that is left behind. We tried to retrace our steps but always end up with a dead end. Naruto hummed thoughtfully. I see. I suppose that makes sense for my situation. What do you mean by that? Alphys asked curiously. Well, I know exactly what caused my disappearance, but what I'm about to tell you all would consider to be unbelievable at first, and I wouldn't blame you for thinking that since I didn't believe it myself when I experienced it firsthand. Everyone looked confused at that until Kushina spoke up. Naruto, just tell us what it is that caused your sudden disappearance. It can't be that difficulty to explain what is unbelievable. Naruto just looked at her. Alright, just know that once I tell you all what it is, don't say I didn't warn you because y'all would be doubting me in a few minutes. Naruto then took a deep breath and exhaled as he began his explanation regarding his disappearance. The reason that led to my disappearance was that I was kidnapped, but it wasn't by a person as Dogami and Dogoressa would have picked up someone else's scent. What took me was a portal. Everyone looked surprised by this but became doubtful, especially Kushina. Naruto had already been expecting those doubtful looks which they're giving him as he said, told y'all you wouldn't believe it. I warned you. But let me finish before any of you question me about that claim. It happened when Nikken and I were heading towards my training ground while I was dealing with some personal stuff. Just when I was preparing to head back home, the portal that kidnapped me appeared from out of nowhere and it tried to SCK me in. Unfortunately, it was too strong for me to get away in time, and before you know it, I got sucked in. Everyone didn't know what to say to this, which Kushina decided to say something as she looked annoyed at this. Seriously, Naruto? That's the best excuse you can come up with? If this is a joke or a prank, we're not laughing. Naruto said, it's neither of those things, it's the truth. Kushina looked even more annoyed at this. This is ridiculous. Do you honestly expect us to believe that a portal caused your sudden disappearance? That is the most stupidest made-up lie I ever heard. Naruto just sighed at this as he knows how stubborn his mom can be, and he expected this anyways. Look, Mom, I know it's hard to believe at first and I get it. After all, I did state that it would be unbelievable at first, but I'm telling you all it's the truth of what happened to me. Besides, can you really find it ridiculous? Of course I do. What makes you think that what you're telling us isn't ridiculous? Well, it can't be more ridiculous than learning about the existence of monsters that have been trapped underground for years, which Nikken, Frisk, and I befriended and freed, knowing about a history that involved a war between humans and monsters that was never mentioned about in history books, or the fact that magic that is supposed to be a fairy tale fantasy exists. All those things are considered to be ridiculous, and yet it all happened. So how is me getting sucked into a random portal against my will that ridiculous to you? Kushina opened her mouth to refute that but decided to shut her mouth because she knows that Naruto is right despite her stubbornness in believing it. All what he said would be considered ridiculous by all accounts, but the fact that her son met and made friends with monsters and learned about a history about a war between humans and monsters and learning about magic is considerably unbelievable, but yet it happened and it's all true. Sans, who was quiet for a while, decided to speak up. The kid has a point, you know. I mean, if you think about it, a portal appearing out of nowhere isn't out of the realm of possibility, and strange things could happen that is out of our comprehension, but that's just my opinion from what we're hearing. Kushina looked shocked at hearing that Sans sounding like he's believing this. Even Alphys agreed to this. I can agree to that. I mean it's a possibility that portals can exist and I've been doing research in the past to find out if that stuff is true. Kushina didn't know what to say that but remained silent until she spoke. I suppose you all have a point, but it's just a mere thought of a portal that Naruto claimed to kidnap him is just impossible. Askari spoke up, unbelievable yes, but not impossible. Believe it or not, there was a time humans were capable of creating portals back then in the past. The red-headed mother looked surprised at this new information. Wait, really? Indeed. You see, during me and Toriel's time when the war broke out, there were some human magicians that were capable of creating portals but was used for transportation to other places, mainly in the battlefield for key positions. So to hear about a portal that Naruto saw and was dragged into, I believe it. Surprised at first, but I'll take his word for it. After all, he's not the type to lie about his own disappearance like that. Right? Everyone, even Toriel who was reluctant, agreed to Askari as Papyrus spoke, of course. Human Naruto isn't the type who lies to us unless it's for good reason, so I believe this isn't a lie. Frisk even adds on saying, Naruto would never lie to us like that, so I'll trust him every step of the way. Asriel said, yeah. Agreeing to Frisk while Red spoke up, he's our friend and he hasn't steered us wrong yet, so I'll believe what he has to say. Kushina couldn't believe that all of them are siding with Naruto, which was a huge shocker, but it did make her smile to see he's made great friends since his journey to the underground. Minato would be proud of his son. Shaking her thoughts, she decided to speak. Alright, you all made your point, so I'll let you continue on your explanation, son, despite how crazy it sounded so far, but I'll hear you out again once you're done. Naruto smiled gratefully, thanks mom. As for everyone, I'm glad you all believe in me, which I'm happy about. Thank you guys. Everyone smiled at him, which he returned back until he got back on track. Anyways, I'll continue where I left off. After that portal pulled me, it took me somewhere that I never thought I would find myself in. Toriel, who spoke up, said, what do you mean, my child? Where did that portal took you to? Naruto said, it may be a surprise to hear this, but I ended up in the underground. After hearing that surprised them. Undyne then said, wait, you're telling us that you were in the underground the entire time? If that was the case, we could have searched for you there. In fact, if you was transported there, you could have just gotten out of the underground and gotten our texts and calls. Alfie spoke in agreement. That is true, you would have known about our texts and calls, so how come you didn't responded back or told us about your encounter beforehand? Naruto ruffled his hair as he explained, you see, that's the thing, and this might be a bit confusing and unbelievable yet again. That portal did take me to the underground, but not the underground that I know of. What do you mean by that? Naruto elaborated on his statement, the underground that I ended up wasn't from here but from another timeline. Now hearing that made everyone shocked at this, especially Alphys, who's looking like she's about ready to geek out at the prospect of timelines exist, but she restrains herself as she wanted to see proof of this before bombarding him with questions. But with Kushina, however, she looked ready to call out her son that what he's saying is just utter nonsense and ridiculously impossible at the prospect of that claim, as she looked frustrated at hearing this. But Kushina calmed herself down as she said to him, Naruto, normally I would have just stopped listening to this nonsense story of yours, ending this farce and just flat out grounding you right then and there, but the only reason I haven't yet is because something tells me you have proof that you were in another timeline that you claim to have been in, and I want to hear the rest of your story. You do have evidence to support this story of yours, right? Perhaps that disc that you mentioned in the beginning? Everyone's sweat dropped and felt awkward from this, especially Naruto, since he knows he's treading on dangerous grounds, but he answered her, as a matter of fact I do have proof that I was in another timeline, which I'll play the disc in a moment, but I want you to all know that what you're about to see is gonna leave you all horrified for what you're about to witness from what I've experienced. Sans quirked a non-existent eyebrow. What do you mean by that, kid? What happened over there that made you say that? Naruto sighed sadly. Watch and you'll all see what I mean. After finish his sentence, he immediately got started inserting the disc as the TV started show static for a bit before revealing it to be Alphys, who looked desperate and afraid. Undyne watched the screen with concern. Hey, that's you, Alphys, but why do you look so scared? Alphys, who was surprised at seeing herself acting that way, replied, I don't know, I don't remember this. Naruto then explained, it's because it isn't you from our timeline, it's from theirs. Watch and listen. As he said that, everyone paid attention as they watched Alphys from the video starting to talk. Hello. Can anyone hear me? This is Alphys, royal scientist of Hotland. If there's anyone who's listening in Hotland, I'm issuing an emergency evacuation. There is a dangerous human child armed with a knife who's going around killing monsters throughout the underground. Everyone except Naruto was surprised at hearing this. They couldn't believe what Alphys had just said. A human child going around killing monsters. They cannot wrap their minds around the idea of someone who's a child no less killing monsters. Who could possibly commit such an atrocity like this? For some reason, Frisk felt a strange feeling from the pit of her stomach that she might know who that human child could be and was hoping it isn't what she's thinking. However, her hopes were dashed as Alphys from the video showed a footage of human child who turned out to be Frisk, shocking everyone, especially Frisk herself, horrified at the sight of her holding a knife as she went around killing monsters from snowed in to waterfall. It didn't help matters that she was covered in monster dust on her clothes. As you can see, this human is highly dangerous, and whenever she comes across a monster, she will kill them without a second thought. Nobody could stop her. Not even the royal guards, and now Undyne, the captain of the royal guard, couldn't stop her from her murderous rampage, had been slain by her. Undyne became enraged when she heard this. What? I lost to the BRT. She was in disbelief and just couldn't accept the fact that she, who's the captain of the royal guard, lost and died to Frisk of all people. Right now the human is making her way to Hotland soon. I don't know what her motive is beyond all these murders, but from what I can understand is that she seeks to exterminate all monster kind. So to anyone who's listening in Hotland, please head down to the evacuation points that I'm setting up, which is the true laboratory or the capital. We don't have much time before the human reaches Hotland. I need to get out of the lab while I contact Askari of the situation and get as many monsters from the core as soon as possible before she makes her way here. So I repeat, get to the evacuation points before the human gets to you. After Alphys finishes her warning to everyone, the video cuts off and turned back to static. Everyone except Naruto were left stunned, speechless at what they had just watched. No one uttered a single word until Undyne broke the silence with a voice full of anger. What the hell did we just watch? Undyne yelled angrily. Language. Toriel spoke in a stern voice towards Undyne due to her cussing while there are children in their presence, with the captain of the royal guard apologizing. Sorry, but seriously, what did we just watch? It's exactly what you all are thinking. What you guys just witnessed from that video feed had taken place from another timeline that I ended up a timeline where a genocide was taking place. Everyone couldn't believe what they are hearing. Naruto ended up in a genocide timeline. Kushina was horrified at hearing that her son ended up there of all places. Does this mean? Kushina decided to ask as she said. Son, did you? Kushina couldn't finish her question as she was too afraid to know what the answer is. Although Naruto already knew what she was gonna ask and decided to just say it. No mom, I didn't exactly experience the murders firsthand. The only thing that I came across were the remains of monsters' dust that Frisk killed around the underground. That was half a lie but also the truth. He may have not witnessed Frisk killing the monsters before his eyes, but the memories that player forced onto him showed him that, and even felt as if he was the victim, so technically he did and at the same time didn't, but they don't need to know about that. Kushina felt relief that he didn't experience the murders, but still. However, Naruto continued, but it didn't exactly help with the fact that my experience there was terrifying and overwhelming. You guys have no idea how bad it was over there. Seeing my friends getting murdered and learning that Frisk of all people was the one that was committing genocide is a horrific sight that I might not ever forget from this dreadful experience. Naruto is well aware that he will forever remember that experience, as he cannot make himself forget what he'd been through. Kushina went to go hug his son, which he accepted it with earnest. Everybody was silent as they are taking in this information. If they didn't believe him before, well, they definitely believe him now. especially Kushina, as she's very much convinced after watching that video feed that it was from another timeline. Frisk was horrified at seeing herself from another timeline committing genocide. It was terrible, and to hear that Naruto was at that place just makes it even more terrifying. Asriel was also terrified at what Naruto had gone through, as he couldn't imagine what he would do if he had experienced what he did. Red didn't say a word, or rather couldn't, with her head down, and was gripping her skirt tightly. Naruto having to experience genocide, and Frisk was the murderer of that timeline. Honestly, it made her angry to learn that her friend was forced upon this. It was unfair. Alphys decided to ask Naruto after both him and Kushina separated from the brief hug, wanting to break the ice. "Naruto, there's something that I don't understand about this." "What is it?" asked Naruto curiously. It's just, why was Frisk doing all of this? Why was she committing genocide? I just don't understand what led her down into such a path." Undyne added to the question, "Yeah, I too want to know why she betrayed everyone she knew and decided to go on a killing spree." Naruto remained silent for a while, knowing the truth about why she did it and why she committed genocide from the start, but the problem with their question is that it requires explanations about the power of reset, the three routes, and Asriel being formerly flowy. Naruto took a while to think about this before saying, "I know the reason behind the whole genocide mess, but before I tell you why, there's something else you all need to know that requires something that is connected to that timeline and ours." Papyrus asked with curiosity, "What is it, human Naruto?" Naruto was a bit hesitant but told them, "Well, I'm gonna need Frisk and Asriel for this, as what I'm about to tell you all involves the three of us." This statement confused everyone, especially Frisk and Asriel, for why Naruto needs them for what he's about to tell them. Sans shared his brother's curiosity as he asked, "Why do you need them, kid? What's got them connected to that timeline and ours?" "You all will find out soon, but now I need to speak with both Frisk and Asriel real quick before I continue on," Naruto insisted. After a moment of silence, Askari spoke up, "Very well, I suppose it's all right. Take your time when you're ready to tell us." After thanking the kind-hearted king, Naruto ushered both Frisk and Asriel out of the living room into a separate one and made sure that they weren't listening in before explaining himself to them. "Sorry about pulling you both out of the blue like that." Asriel waved him off in understanding. "It's okay, it must be something important that you're needed to talk to us first, right?" Naruto took a deep breath and then said, "Yes, it's very important. I've been doing some thinking up until now after my experience in the other timeline, and I know this is sudden, but I'm afraid we can't keep our secret from them any longer. We may have to tell them everything." Both Frisk and Asriel looked shocked at this, but mostly Asriel, whose face started to turn a bit pale, and he wanted to clarify just to be sure. "Why, you don't mean?" Naruto sighed at this. "Yes, Asriel, I'm afraid so. We'll have to tell them everything, and I do mean everything. The power of reset, the routes that I know, and you being formerly flowy." After hearing this, Asriel's fears were confirmed as he looked even more pale and scared, knowing everyone will learn who was flowy, and was afraid of what their reactions would be. He felt terrified, knowing they'll hate him for the cruel actions he had done as flowy. Frisk, on the other hand, looked unsure if they should tell them of their secret, but she was more concerned for Asriel than anything else. "What? But Naruto, we can't tell them that. We just can't. I'm not ready for them to know the truth," said Asriel, looking very afraid about this, which Naruto was well aware about. They were hoping that the others would never to know about Asriel being flowy this whole time, and for the better. But it seems that time has caught up to them, and given Naruto's unfortunate experience in the genocide timeline and learning the truth behind it, he has to tell them everything. Even it means telling them about flowy being Asriel. Naruto grabbed Asriel's shoulders while speaking in a calm voice. "Asriel, calm down. I know you don't want them to know about it, and neither do we, but what choice do I have? How am I supposed to explain to them in the timeline I was in? Frisk has done more than just one genocide run." Frisk looked at Naruto in horror. "Wait, the other me has done what?" Naruto sighed and explained further. "Yes, Frisk. This isn't the first time the other Frisk did a genocide run. In fact, she's done it twice now, and I arrived in that timeline when she started a third run. She's been resetting more than once to the point it lead to committing genocide. As for the how and why, Well, that's the thing, I need to explain to the others about what a reset is and the 3 routes that I have the knowledge about. If I don't tell them, then how am I supposed to explain that the other Frisk has been resetting the timeline numerous times before, having committed 2 genocide runs and restarted the timeline again to start a 3rd run before my arrival? They wouldn't understand the concept at all unless we explain it to them. Otherwise, they wouldn't believe me. Both Frisk and Israel began to understand his logic since it makes sense and he's not wrong. But still Israel asked, but do they really need to know about me being flowy though? Can't we just not include that? Perhaps just tell them that both you and Frisk had the power of reset and leave me out of it. That way, they don't necessarily need to know about the fact I used to have that power before you 2 showed up. Naruto thought about it, which actually isn't a bad idea to be honest. However, he felt that it isn't right nonetheless, despite this could potentially leave setbacks. You're not actually wrong about your suggestion, as it could work, however I'm afraid we can't do that. The 2 were shocked at his rejection of the idea as Israel asked. Huh? But why? Israel, I'm gonna be honest with you here. How long do you think we can keep this secrecy of ours about you being flowy? Even if we don't tell them now, at some point in the future, they'll eventually figure it out on their own and soon problems will arise from the fact we hid this information from them. Don't get me wrong, we have every right to not tell them this, but don't you want to lift the weight off of your chest that you hid this from them so you can finally be free and be happy? Israel looked unsure, debating himself. Then he heard Naruto continue, if we tell them of your past actions as flowy, you can finally move on and put the past behind you fully. I'm sure they'll understand and won't get mad. It wasn't your fault given you were soulless at the time. But if we don't tell them, there's a 50-50 chance of them figuring it out themselves if given the opportunity. Besides, you're not alone as you have friends and family now. Frisk and I will back you up. If things do get out of hand, I'll handle it. Okay. Israel looked at Naruto, then turned to Frisk, which she was sporting a smile, giving him a thumbs up as her way of saying she's right with him. Israel smiled as tears dripped his eyes and he hugged Naruto as he said, okay, we'll tell them. Also thank you Naruto. Naruto returned the hug with a smile, of course Azzy. It's my job as your big bro to look after you when you're feeling down. I'm not letting anything happen to you anymore. We'll get through this together. Can you put your trust in me? Israel looked him in the eyes while giving him a big smile as he replied in confidence, yes. I trust you completely. Naruto smiled at this, thanks Azzy, I know Frisk's got my back as well, right? Frisk nodded in agreement, alright, then let's head back to the others. Can't keep them waiting and get this over with. The sooner the better. Both Frisk and Israel nodded as they followed Naruto back to the others in the living room. As they were heading back, Chara, who'd been watching them, heard their whole conversation. It amazed her that Naruto truly cares about Israel a great deal, to the point of calling himself his big brother. Israel seems to really look up to Naruto, and it's not just Israel but also Frisk. In fact, both of them look up to Naruto as their leader of sorts. It makes her genuinely curious to know just what makes Naruto so special. As the 3 returned to the others who were waiting for them. We're back, thanks for the wait. Toriel said, it's no problem my child, are you ready to tell us now? Naruto nodded in affirmation, yes, but before I get to that, there's something that you all need to know first. What is it, human Naruto? Asked Papyrus. Naruto looked at both Frisk and Israel for a bit before asking them, well Frisk, Israel and I have talked for a bit and we've decided to tell you our secret that we've kept from you all this time, but with good reason. Kushina raised an eyebrow in question, and exactly what secret is that, son? Tell me, do any of you know what this is? As he asked that, Naruto stretched his hand out and immediately, a button appeared above his hand that says reset on it. Everyone looked surprised and amazed at this. Alphys looked curious at that button and asked, what is that? This is a reset button that I mentioned about. This button has the power to restart this timeline back to the starting moments of our arrival to the underground, a start over to be exact. It also erases the memories of others who knows and are friends with us and what this timeline has been through. Think of it like something from a video game of sorts. But only ones possesses a soul with the highest level of determination can wield this kind of power, with me being the current user. Everyone was amazed to learn about this, although Sans just stared at the button before asking, wait. So when were you gonna tell us about that? Naruto looked at Sans. To be honest, I don't know. We weren't planning to tell you guys at all, or maybe at some point in the future, but telling you guys that I have the power to reshape our timeline has some drawbacks, and you all probably wouldn't believe me if I were to tell you. There's a reason why we withheld this information from you, because this kind of concept is beyond our understanding and no one should have this kind of power, and yet I have it. Sans thought about his reasons, which seemed honest, so he accepted it. Alphys was fascinated at this information. This is amazing. I never knew this kind of power exist. Undyne agreed, albeit warily. Yeah, but it's also kinda scary when you think about it. Anyone would kill just to have that kind of power. You don't know the half of it, Undyne. In fact, none of you do, thought Naruto bitterly, knowing all too well from his experience in the genocide timeline and the memories he was forcefully given by the player. Chara, who was silently watching them, looked away in shame and sadness as she heard what Undyne said, as she's the person that she would kill just to have that power and abuse it for genocidal purposes. Alphys asked, so have you used reset, and is it only you who has this power? In our timeline, no, I haven't used it, and hopefully I never will. But in that other timeline, yes, I have, and for good reason, but I'll get back to that in a moment. As for your other question, no, it's not just me. Both me and Frisk have the same power, but my determination overrides hers, which ultimately makes me the owner of our timeline. However, we aren't the only one who has this power, for there is another who used to have it before our arrival to the underground. This surprised everyone as well as made them curious as to who else possessed that power. Alphys asked, really? Who? As everyone was awaiting for his answer, Naruto was a bit silent, looking at Asriel, who's looking a bit nervous, but Naruto took a deep breath and walked towards Asriel, placing a hand on his shoulder to calm him down. The third person who originally had the power of reset before us was Asriel. Everyone were immediately shocked at this revelation, especially Askari and Toriel. The latter being more vocal about it. My child. You had this power before? Asriel nervously nodded. Askari then asked, but I don't understand. Since when did you have that kind of power? He was wondering, since monsters aren't capable of generating determination, and so how did his son come into possession of the reset button? Asriel was beginning to look more nervous, which Naruto took notice and asked, Azzy, do you want me to tell them, or you'll do it yourself? If you don't want to, I can tell them about it. Asriel looked at him as he steeled his nerves, seeing Naruto who was to calm him down. No, it's okay, Naruto. I'll tell them. I need to come clean if I want to move on from my past sins, said Asriel with newfound confidence. Naruto looked him with a proud smile. Okay. Whatever happens, just know me and Frisk got your back. Frisk nodded in agreement, making Asriel smile with confidence. Thanks you guys. Asriel looked at the others, but mostly Toriel and Askari, as he took in a deep breath before finally answering Askari's question. The reason I had the power of reset before Naruto and Frisk was because I used to be flowy. Everyone was silent after hearing this till Toriel broke the silence. What? Toriel looked like she was in denial and thought Asriel is joking. My child, please tell me you're joking. Because this isn't funny, you couldn't possibly be that rotten flower. You just couldn't. She felt that Asriel was making a cruel joke and hoped that he wasn't being serious about him being flowy. However, for Toriel, her fears were confirmed as she and Askari heard Asriel reaffirm the truth. I'm not joking, Mom, unfortunately I'm being serious about this. Toriel felt devastated at hearing that he was being serious. So then that means back at the ruins when I attacked that flower it was actually you? Asriel nodded sadly, which only made things worse for her, as Toriel had her hands on her mouth and tearing up upon learning that she attacked her own son without knowing. She went to hug Asriel whilst sobbing, which only made Asriel to start crying too, and he hugged her back while hearing her saying, I'm sorry, a few times. Everyone looked at this with somber expressions while Askari wanted to ask, I don't understand. How did our son become a flower in the first place? When did that happen? Alphys spoke up while feeling nervous. I know the reason behind that whole mess. It's all because of me. Everyone was looking confused minus Naruto and Israel as they looked at Alphys. Undyne asked, what do you mean by that? How does this involve you? Alphys stated, it has everything to do with me. That day when both the first fallen human and Israel died, things were looking downhill for all monster kind. Everyone has lost hope from the devastating loss which resulted in Askari declaring war towards humanity and to kill any humans who have fallen down in the underground. That only made Toriel not want anything to do with Askari, which only made the whole situation worse. So I thought up a plan to bring back Israel back to life. I started doing experiments with the extracted determination or DT for short on a flower that had Israel's dust onto it after his passing. I injected DT into it to see if the experiment was a success or failure. At first, nothing was working until later I learned that the particular flower that I was experimenting had escaped from the lab. Everyone was silent. Askari wanted to say something but he stopped due to the room becoming a bit tense because of Toriel looked conflicted with mixed emotions but mainly anger. Anger at herself for not realizing earlier and anger at Alphys for turning her son into a flower. Toriel, you must understand that it wasn't Alphys' fault if that's what you're currently thinking. Don't be mad at her, said Naruto as he gained Toriel's attention. She only wanted to help both you and Askari by bringing back your son for what the humans did back then. Besides, that's all in the past now. You got your son back, isn't that good enough? Toriel thought about it, that it was better than not seeing him anymore. Askari then spoke up, Naruto speaks the truth. It happened in the past so perhaps it doesn't matter anymore. Right, Tori? However, this only made Toriel look at him with a stern expression and responded coldly, don't ever call me Tori. It's Toriel to you, Askari. After saying that, Askari looked down, lowering his head in shame and hurt which made everyone feel bad for him. Undyne however had had enough of Toriel's hostile behavior towards Askari and decided to put this problem to rest once and for all. Alright, that's it. This grudge of yours Toriel has gone on long enough. It's about time for you get over it. Toriel looked surprised at this then turned to anger. Excuse me. I will not get over it, not after what he has done, said Toriel, which only made Undyne angry as they both argued with each other. Well, at least he tried to help the monster kind to be free, and what did you do? That's right, you left him. You left us all. He had to handle the responsibility of giving us hope, while you went to hiding. Where were you when he needed the support from the burden of shouldering our hopes and dreams? Huh? Why can't you just give him another chance? He's trying to make it up to you and you never gave him a chance. Toriel angrily responded, you want to know why? Because I don't want anything to do with that heartless monster. There were other options to be free from the barrier, but instead, he declared that any human who has fallen down will put to death, and the 6 fallen humans were children for God's sake. Children who had families, and he took them away just to get the souls. Undyne winced at this, unable to refute that fact but refused to back down. There weren't any other options. We tried what we can but to no success. Plus, what about your son, huh? The humans took him away from you and Askari too. We only wanted peace but they didn't allow that, instead they killed your son because of what he is. Aren't you angry about what they did? I understand what we did was not right, but the humans weren't innocent either. They started first, we just retaliated. Toriel then said, that doesn't mean we should respond with violence. We'll be no different than them, and of course I was angry for what they did. But that doesn't mean we should kill off anyone who's fallen down. Why not? You're saying we should let ourselves submit to them, kick over and take that it's not theirs. You're a hypocrite from your point of view. That made Toriel pissed off as she began to activate her fire magic, scaring Israel and Frisk, including the others, with Undyne about to summon her spear. How dare you? But before this continued on, Naruto had lost most of his patience with this nonsense as he stood up with his eyes radiating with a white fiery aura and yelled out, enough. He released his power, which made both Toriel and Undyne stop from their argument and possibly a fight, making everyone looking at Naruto in shock at the display of his power. Sans spoke out in awe, "Whoa kid, your eyes. Naruto took in a deep breath and exhaled to calm himself down before speaking. It's fine. Also sorry about my outburst, but this argument needs to stop. Toriel, I understand where you're going with this, but I think you should give Ascari a second chance. Give the big guy a break. Surely you're not planning on holding a grudge against him for eternity, right? If you can't do that for him, then do it for you, son. Do it for us real. He missed you guys when you both were together and wanted to be a happy family again. Toriel was silent about this, for she doesn't know if she continue to hold a grudge against Ascari, which the minority of her heart said yes she should, because Ascari is a heartless monster, but there is still a part of her that misses him when they were happy. As she was thinking, Kushina decided to speak. While it's not my place to say in this subject, but in my opinion, I believe my son is right. I think you should at least give Ascari a chance. I mean, don't you think he's had enough? He's trying to atone for his past decisions and make up for it. He's doing this for you in hopes of earning your forgiveness. Plus, it's only natural he would feel rage for the loss of both your son as well as the first fallen human, which would only make him take irrational decisions. If anything, you could have stopped him had you remained behind, and he would have listened to you. I can understand that you were upset, but you also failed to realize the sorrow that would take the place of anger soon after. The bottom line is what happened back then is in the past, and that monster kind is no longer trapped underground anymore. You're living up on the surface with us humans now. Don't you think it's about time for you move on? Kushina's words really made Toriel ponder over her options. Even Naruto added to it. Also, just make things even clearer, if you're still thinking that Ascari killed those children for their souls by himself, then that wasn't the case. Toriel looked a bit surprised by this and asked, what do you mean? What I mean is Ascari never killed the 6 fallen humans. In fact, throughout our travel in the underground, Frisk, Nikken and I had been discovering items that belonged to each of the 6 fallen humans in different locations. Ascari never had the chance of killing the children, and most likely they were killed by one of the monster residents and brought their souls to Ascari himself. He'd never done the deed, so in a way, he's innocent. He may have ordered it but never committed it himself. Toriel was shocked about this information and wanted to confirm it herself. Ascari, is this true? You didn't kill them yourself? Ascari shook his head sadly. No, Toriel, I never killed them. I was only given their souls by one of the royal guards or the residents. Personally, I'm very glad that I didn't do so. I wasn't sure what I would do if one of them actually had managed to reach me, and I couldn't stomach the thought of going through my intentions. After you left and having to shoulder the burden of our hopes and dreams, I began regretting my decision, but if I didn't do anything, I would be letting everyone down for nothing. Every death of the 6 fallen children and acquiring their souls was a step closer to gaining our freedom. I began regretting everything what I did and wished that things had happened differently, but what's done is done and there's nothing I could do to change that. Toriel, I'm deeply sorry for my rash decisions. I wasn't thinking clearly of the consequences and your feelings after our children died, and I regretted it every day, wishing it never came to it. Please just give me a second chance. I missed how we used to be. I just wanted us to be together again, but if you still don't have it in your heart to forgive me, then I understand. Toriel didn't know what to say or what to think. All this time she had believed that Ascari was nothing but an evil tyrant who only cared about getting revenge by getting all 7 human souls to break free of the barrier and wage war against humanity, but after hearing that he'd never done the deed, which was a relief to hear, and he actually regretted what he did, she just couldn't find it in her heart to hold a grudge against him. And truth be told, there are a few number of times where she missed the old days when they were a family again before their children's death. So many things had happened and changed, and none for the better. So if what they're saying is true, then perhaps she can let go of her hatred towards him. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 6. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Hussbek on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.